What's up, San Diego?
San Diego, turn it up. From the dugout to the sidelines, from the front office to the fan in the stands, this is where San Diego sports comes to be heard.
College athletics is the gift that keeps on giving. This is why I love this stuff.
He's not just talking about the game, he's driving the conversation, breaking it down, calling it out, and saying what everyone else won't.
They start licking their chops, man, when they hear like, oh, look at all these guys the Padres could potentially trade.
This is the voice San Diego Sports trusts on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
We're your favorite show's favorite show.
This is the Braden Surprenant Show.
Think about the children, the family show.
Now, here's Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? Happy Thursday, everybody out there in America's finest city. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All-Star Week, always a hard week for us here on the radio station. We're talking, obviously, mostly Padres baseball, and I thought today's roundtable conversation was really good. It's a lot of the recapping of the first half. What do you want to see out of this team in the second half? And Ben always does a great job bringing up good questions. And if you want to hear it, again, we're going to re-air it later on tonight. We are also have it for you on YouTube. You could find it on the Odyssey app when the rewind function. It will be wherever you get your podcast. That's getting up right now. But a very good conversation with myself, Ben Higgins, Stephen Woods, Chris Ello, and Darren Smith, our special guests today, talking about this Padres team one half in. And I think I do want to start the show a little bit with some of the conversation that we had at the roundtable, and I do want to get Frank's thoughts. But in recapping the first half of the season, you know, Ben wanted to get away from the letter grades because he thinks everybody would have the same letter grade. I kind of agree with that. But just for S's and giggles, what would your letter grade be for the Padres in the first half of the season? They're 500. They went 48-48. They've played mediocre baseball. They had a rough stretch of the offense. It's now turned around, but the offense was expected to be better. The pitching staff hasn't been great, but it wasn't expected to be that great, considering all the circumstances. The bullpen's been great. Team is 500, but are they underperforming? I would say probably underperforming more than overperforming. How do you evaluate the last couple of weeks that the Padres have had with their offense getting turned around? Manny Machado getting things better. I mean, right now, how do you evaluate a team that's 500 other than just the C? I guess I would give it maybe more of a C minus, just based on strictly a little bit of the expectations with the way the season started a little bit. The fact that the Padres have started to get a little bit better in terms of their offense, but the pitching staff starting to, falter now. But you can't blame them too much because, as I mentioned on the roundtable a couple of weeks ago, you didn't sign Walker Buehler to a minor league deal to be your number 2 starter. You signed him to compete for the number 5 spot in the rotation. And we'll talk about the pitching staff in a second. But overall letter grade, I'd probably give him a C minus, like slightly below mediocrity, even though the record is mediocre. Because I think a lot of the individual players are playing at career worst paths. And even the guys that are playing well are still having some problems with their game or some uncharacteristic flaws of their game. And I think about like Fernando, who has had, I think, a really good first half offensively. When you look at all his numbers, he just doesn't have the home runs. That happens. I'm not as upset about it as much as like maybe Chris is, because he brought that up in the roundtable today. But with all things considered, I'd probably give him a C minus for the first half of the season. We thought they would. I don't think anybody thought going into the season with the starting rotation that they had, with the offense that they put together, being basically most of the same team from last year, with the fact that the Dodgers are coming off of 2 World Series championships where everybody else was at in the National League. I think most people thought they would be a little bit above 500, but not too much more than that. The fact that they're around 500, to me, gets them a little bit under expectations. And when you play around expectations, you're in the C to B minus range anyway, because you're not exceeding the expectations that you have had. So therefore, I give them a C minus, Frank, in the first half.
Yeah, that's exactly the grade that I would have given them as well. The 500 team, you can't really rate them any higher than a C. C's average. And for me, it's less of the first half performance of the rotation and the second half performance of the lineup kind of wash each other out. So for me, the reason why I give it a C minus, is because of just the mental errors that this team has made. They've gotten caught making many of them this year, whether it be on the base paths. We've seen a couple of defensive lapses, especially out of Sungwoo Song right after he came up. There was one game where he almost botched 2 plays, like right off the bat. I can't. For me, it's the mental mistakes. It's the lack of situational ability. It just being the player that the situation calls for you to be. And the fact that really hasn't been there at all this year, or at least for a vast majority of this year, is why I'd give it a C minus. I don't think it's D worthy. I mean, there have been definitely have been some stretches that have been D worthy, but I would say C minus as well.
Yeah, I just think they're slightly under where there should be in terms of, because we mentioned a 500 team should be around a C grade anyway. I think they're playing slightly below that. I think they're lucky to be 500 right now with some of the play that they have in the last 2 months. I think considering you mentioned the mental errors. I agree with you, Frank, on there's a lot of things that this Padres team can control that they haven't been able to control either, right? Getting thrown out at third base, getting picked off the base pass, base running blunders, a couple of uncharacteristic errors that they've made throughout the year in bad times, defensively, offensively, getting into like massive slumps. Having all of your best players have career worst starts to their seasons. I mean, I know Manny's turning it around now. I know Fernando's turning it around now, but with all of that considered, it's probably around a C minus, which leads you to the evaluation of maybe individually the different components of this team. And starting with the offense, how would you rank the offense? I think the offense has been mediocre at best, but not even that. They have the worst statistics in Major League Baseball. Now, the one thing that I wanted to push back on at the roundtable with the whole, they've been the worst team in the first half, statistically, yeah, on the season they have, but as of late, they haven't. They've gotten the offense going back a little bit. They just dug themselves in such a big hole that it's going to be hard to come out of that hole in terms of being the worst offense in Major League Baseball. But they haven't been the worst offense in Major League Baseball for the last month. That's been the Yankees after Aaron Judge went down. They've been the worst offense in baseball. So I think more like recency, they've been a lot better. This is an offense that, where do you find, how did everything go wrong with this offense? I think it's a mix of things. I mentioned this on the roundtable, but when you look at this offense, Frank, I think the fact that they faced the highest velo on average, and they face mostly, high throwing 100-mile-an-hour pitchers and facing a lot of ace-like pitchers, I think that plays a little bit of a factor. I think Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts getting older plays a little bit of a factor. I think the players adjusting to a new hitting coach plays a little bit of a factor. I think the players not sticking to their process and to their plan, as Craig Stammen mentioned at the beginning of the year, is also a little bit of the problem. I think it's a little bit of everything that has led to this offense not being one of the better offenses in baseball. In fact, being the worst in terms of statistics. And I attribute a lot of it to the inconsistency of when they want to be the offense that trusts each other and passes the baton, and the times that they want to, almost panic and go, I gotta take care of myself right now. I got see ball, hit ball. that to me is the biggest problem with this offense, is just the inconsistencies, because when this team does abide by any type of a team approach, which anybody that watches goes like, they don't have an approach. That doesn't mean they didn't get installed an approach. They're just not following what their approach may or may not be. I know that they are not being told by Steven Souza Jr. or the Padres offense to swing out of your shoes on pitches way outside the zone. You know that's not the case. So I think from the offensive perspective, when you look at this offense in terms of what has gone wrong, I think the biggest thing has been inconsistency and not sticking to the plan that they have in place, or having two or three guys not abide by the plan, which leads to a catastrophic failure with this offense. And that's how a lot of offensive baseball offenses work. And Ben mentioned it. I mean, when things are good, they power of friendship, pass the baton, grind out at bats, selfless at bats, which we've seen over the last couple of weeks. And when it doesn't go well, and you get guys starting to press a little bit and they do their own thing, this offense starts to completely collapse, Frank. And I think that's the inconsistencies of this offense, and a big reason why they have been statistically the worst offense in baseball.
And that to me is part of a bigger issue. Is I don't need Fernando to go up there and be the $350 million Manny, to go up there and be the $40 million a year Manny that he feels like he needs to be every single time. You just need to be the player that the situation calls for. If you hit a home run, great. But, I mean, realistically, you should be looking to find a gap or put one down the line. I know that's a hell of a lot easier said than done. But that's really what this offense really needs to get ingrained in it, is that they just need to be the player that the situation calls for. And if they can do that consistently, then they will also become the Manny who's making $40 million a year, the Fernando that's getting $350 million over the lifetime of his contract, the Xander who's getting $280 million over the life of his contract. It's really, you can boil it down to it being that simple. Just be the person the situation calls for.
I do also want to throw out there for everybody that gets on Steven Souza Jr. I mean, and this is just thinking outside the box right now, and context clues of, Fernando had worked with his dad, right? And we got in the reports that he was working with his dad. He wants to be an all-around hitter. His dad said, in these articles that, do you think you're a good hitter? And he was like, yeah. And the dad's absolutely not. Fernando Sr., right? And then then the reports about Manny working with Teacher Man, right? The guy with the weird coil your back knee and then uppercut swing and all that stuff. But where I'm getting with that is both of those players got off to bad starts, looked completely lost at the plate, looked like they were trying to do a lot of different things, and have now since made adjustments and gotten better. And the only one that they're really probably working with right now or have time to is Steven Souza Jr. So as much as we want to get on Steven Souza Jr. for the lack of offense, which I honestly don't think is their fault, nor he gets that much credit, but I think you do have to give a little bit of credit about if he inherited a mess of what everybody did on their offseason, and now it's starting to get better, and the only one that's really talking to these guys right now is probably Steven Souza Jr. I think you got to give the guy a little bit of credit for getting Manny and Fernando slightly back on track, because who knows what kind of mess he inherited at the beginning of the season.
Yes, I agree. And with Manny, it obviously didn't work for offense, him going to see Judge's hitting coach.
And I don't mind him trying to find different ways to make him a better player.
I don't really either. But if you look at his final season totals and you look at where he's at now as far as his power and his home runs are concerned, he is kind of ahead of where he normally is. So in one way, it did kind of work. He's gotten a little bit more power than what he's had. He's got 19 home runs at this point of the year. Over the last 5 years, He's hit 27, 29, 30, 32, and 28. That's since 2021. So he's a little bit ahead of where he normally is as far as home runs are concerned. It just killed his average. So it kind of worked, but it didn't have the full effect that I think he was hoping for.
I mean, I guess. I think a lot of those have been more. He's had a lot of home runs more recent. I know he's gotten some of the power. His home run swings don't look like those. His home run swings look more like his vintage swings. So I don't know how much of it has really helped, but they mentioned on the roundtable, I totally agree with this. When talking about Manny, he's like, I guess they mentioned on the morning show, he's like 3 or 4 bleeders or 12 balls that were hit right at somebody away from being an all-star this year. That's how crazy this is. Like, he's like 19 home runs, as we mentioned before. I mean, he's on a career pace for that. He's driving in runs. So, he's getting a lot of like great numbers. The average is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the only thing that's suffering. And if you look at, there's been so many plays here and there where the Padres have gotten unlucky. And I'm not, using this as an excuse, but you have 12 of those plays. And this happened. This is like this is how razor thin the difference is between being an all-star in the first half and being like, oh man, this guy lost everything. I mean, you talk about like 12 extra hits that he might have on bleeders or bloop shots or not hitting it right at somebody. And all of a sudden, Manny's probably having an all-star year with his defense being as high, as highly rated as it's been this season, on his outs above average. His home run totals are high. I mean, he's doing things exceptionally well. The biggest thing that is costing him right now is his batting average, which is obviously not good, but you got to think about what he has had to do to get that average finally above 200. And as much as everybody wants to say how much he's been aging and he sucks, he's terrible now, he's putting up some really good numbers that he usually doesn't do in the first half.
He's striking out a lot. He's had 87 strikeouts. Last year he had 131. The year before that he has 124. He's also walking a lot this year. Last year he walked 55 times. The year before that, in 2024, he walked 45 times. You know how many times he's walked this year?
How many?
44. So he is almost surpassed walks for a full season that he's had in the last 3 years, just in the first half of this season. So he's striking out a lot. He's walking a lot, and the reason why his on-base percentage is so down, it's at 290 right now, is because his batting average is 203.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about the pitching staff. Some moves, maybe the pitch. Like, is this the rotation as it is? And I think it's very concerning, obviously, going into the second half, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But with this rotation, Frank, did A.J. Preller do everything he probably had resources to try to improve this rotation? We're going to answer that question when we come back on the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego Summer Sports Station, 97 through the Fan. Welcome to the MLB All-Star break. I don't know if you've noticed that during our live shows, as we are in a commercial break if you're watching this on YouTube. But it means there's, it's not too much going on in the Major League Baseball world. And we're getting closer to trade deadline talks, obviously. But it's also time to hand out some midseason awards. In the American League, Jordan Alvarez has been unstoppable. He's carrying the Astros offense and putting together an MVP caliber season. In the NL, it's impossible to ignore Shohei Ohtani, even though we want to here in San Diego. Even when his hitting alone isn't enough, he adds elite pitching on top of it. And that's why he remains the favorite for the MVP. The biggest disappointment, Vlad Guerrero Jr. struggling after signing a massive contract. Where have we heard that before? And the Mets offseason additions failing to produce. Why do you put that in there, Frank? I don't know. Why do you torture yourself? The biggest surprise have been the breakout stars. Jacob Mizorowski dominating hitters with his historic fastball. Kevin McGonigal looking like a future superstar. Padres closer Mason Miller becoming one of baseball's most unhittable pitchers. Second half is coming. Will the superstars continue to rule baseball, or are we watching the new generation take over? MLB reaches the All-Star break. Time to hand out some hardware of some first half awards, Frank.
Yeah, we'll start off with the American League MVP, Jordan Alvarez. has been so good. He has been carrying the Houston Astros lineup and putting together one of the most dominant offensive seasons in baseball, threatening to finish among the league leaders in every major offensive category: runs, hits, homers, RBIs, on base, slugging, OPS. What makes this season even more impressive is the context. The Astros are not the same offensive machine that we saw in previous years. They have so many holes in that lineup, but Alvarez has been the one consistent potential triple crown watch for a guy like Yordan Alvarez at this point.
In the National League, can you give it to anybody besides Otani again? I mean,
You could.
at some
Are we
point,
gonna? No.
I mean, he's been better than everybody else. I mean, he could do things pitching and hitting at an elite level that nobody else can do. At some point, baseball may need to create a separate award just for him because the MVP almost feels impossible when you start factoring everything he does. I mean, obviously, the argument against Otani is that he's hitting alone may not be enough this season compared to other candidates. But then again, he's also pitching. And that's what separates him from everybody else, which coincides with why I dislike awards to begin with, because we get to a point where he's just going to win every single year. Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Schwarber, they're having tremendous seasons, but they're also not pitching at an elite level. They're just doing one thing. This guy's continued to do two. And if he does one of those things elite, it's usually enough for an MVP award because you could do two things. You count for two players, and a lot of the rules are set in favor for you, which is kind of why it's a little weird that he's not playing in the All-Star game. I mean, for everything Major League Baseball has done for this guy, separate rule, allowing him to defer money, putting in another rule where he is allowed to pitch and hit. I mean, yeah, you would think he'd show up and take a hack at least at the All-Star game, right?
Yeah, one would definitely think. One guy who is not taking a hack at the All-Star game because he declined it, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He has been probably the LVP, least valuable player. Right now for Toronto. This might be the most shocking selection of the group. A player who just signed a massive contract, was expected to be the face of the Blue Jays. Offense has been struggling badly. His power, much the same way as we saw with another junior this season, his power is gone. His power has completely disappeared. He's not been able to drive the ball consistently in the air. And for a team with postseason expectations, his struggles have been really, really devastating for Toronto, as we just saw here last weekend.
Yeah, the Blue Jays obviously need the superstar of Vlad Guerrero Jr. in the second half if they want to compete, as they're 2.5 games out of a wild card spot as of Monday. The Mets, NL least valuable player is the entire team. This season has not gone according to plan in New York. The Mets have had several major additions in which they expected to build a championship contender, but injuries and underperformance have created a nightmare scenario. Marcus Semien has struggled. Luis Robert Jr. has dealt with injuries. Jorge Polanco has barely been available. Even Freddie Peralta, who is expected to anchor the rotation, has not lived up to expectations. The Mets have entered a year with big expectations, but the first half has been defined by disappointment. But you look at the list of cast of characters. I mean, Marcus Semien is old. Trading for him to try to help your middle infield was always a head scratching move, considering the amount of money that he was owed. Luis Robert Jr. has not been anything close to what he was at the beginning part of his White Sox career, and has always dealt with injuries. Jorge Polanco has barely been available in the last couple of years of playing baseball, and there's always a reason why the Brewers trade away high valuable players or big name guys. Freddie Peralta joins another list of Brewers that they didn't mind parting ways with. What is the current status of the New York Mets, Frank? $10.24. Added down some carrots to put out some of those wings. Some of those were hot. Not as hot as Ben Higgins having to deal with the Carolina Reaper in the barbecue wings that he had last week. He was struggling.
Oops.
Yeah, they failed to mention that part of the spicy barbecue that Epic Wings has.
Right, because it's funny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it the first time. I'd be like, yeah, why would you down those? There are Reaper peppers in there.
Well,
Huh?
they did warn everybody, and they said, these are extremely hot. And apparently Ben saw the warning, and he blew through the stop sign. And he got hit by a semi. He survived, but it was rough for a little bit. Epic Wing, the new barbecue wings. I cannot touch. I can't. I like a little spice, Frank. Probably a lot more spice than you like, but it's still a soft level of spice. Because I want my food to be enjoyable to an extent. I don't want it to be painful. I don't want to be crying. I don't want snot going out of my nose. I don't need that. I don't need everything to be spicy.
So you're not a full-on masochist.
No. I like a little spice, not too much. A little kick to spice up your life a little bit, but I'm not doing any like spicy challenges. I'm not asking for extra hot. Absolutely not. Foul on one. That's a Dexter level joke in the YouTube chat.
He draws the foul.
There we go. You getting hyped up for the race tonight?
Yes, I am.
O'Reilly series. Where you at in the O'Reilly series?
I'm not in championship contention for that, but I will be there.
All right. Try not to don't wreck anybody.
Oh, I won't. Promise I won't.
Do you have the same guys from the trucks, or is this completely different?
Most of the same. Not all of them, but most of them are.
What about the guys that blew through your back end?
I don't remember, honestly. I really don't remember if he runs on Thursday nights.
Better watch out, dog.
Like I said, I ain't gonna touch him.
No, you should. I'm your crew chief now.
Well,
You get blow through that guy.
I'm not gonna.
We gotta send a message here, Frank. We gotta send a message that trash pandas don't mess around. Vroom vroom. Frank will be active tonight. You got a live stream for this?
No, I do not.
You don't, as in you don't want anybody to watch, or you don't actually have a live stream?
No,
link?
I don't have a live. I do not have a live stream link.
I think we got to get Trav Gundy as your crew chief on the YouTube chat.
I think that would not be a great idea.
I think it'd be a great idea.
I will, over the weekend, I will work on getting my personal Twitch account working for the races next week.
I mean, you can have an all-star crew here. You can have, you can have Juan and Cole on your pit crew. Trav can be your spotter. Get Nikki P to be your crew chief. I think we're locked in.
All right, guys, it's Trash Panda Autosport. Our mascot's name is Rocky.
You name the mascot.
Yes.
Okay.
Rocky Raccoon after the Beatles song.
Okay.
He is he's a mischievous little fellow.
Okay.
There was pretty much anything mischievous that raccoons make the news for, we've kind of taken ownership over that. Like there was one where I think it was in Ohio that this woman got busted for doing illicit substances, and a raccoon was caught in her car with the device to do illicit substances. So we took ownership of that and said, Rocky is working through some issues. We had a hard week at the racetrack this week, and he had to blow off some steam. We're helping him work through this. He is getting better now.
All right. There's a story about how Frank got his mascot for his race team for iRacing. What were you racing today?
Kevin Harvick's Kern County Raceway, which is, I believe, in Bakersfield.
Well, that's Kern County, so.
Well, yeah, there you go.
I don't know who else would be up in Kern County. Have you ever been to Kern County?
No.
Yeah, it's not.
Perfect place for a racetrack. Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what do we got on the have you raced here before?
It's been a long time. Did some practice laps last night. Feel like I'm ready to go. So we're rolling.
All right.
We'll be rolling tonight.
Good luck in Kern County tonight. Frank getting his race again. I was going to talk about the pitching staff. We don't have too much time. We're going to get into that in the next segment in terms of the offseason. In terms of evaluating the pitching staff, you know what? They are what they are. I mean, this is a pitching staff in terms of the starting rotation for the San Diego Padres, where, as we mentioned on the roundtable, I've mentioned before, you have a lot of guys that were brought in to compete for one spot. Now, all of a sudden, all in the rotation. I don't care what team you are, but if you brought in a guy to not get the number 5 spot because he didn't get a major league contract, he was competing for a number 5 spot in Walker Buehler, and he all of a sudden became your number 2 in the rotation, and at some point pitches as well as your number 1 in the rotation, which honestly says more about the Padres than it did about Walker Buehler. I don't know what team survives that, Frank. I really don't. I mean, they brought in him. If Walker Buehler had the season that he has had and had that month plus of just putting up only 1-run outings as your number 5 guy, you're stoked right now because you're in a really good spot. But unfortunately, he became your number 2 due to injuries. I can't really give the pitching staff too bad of a grade because they're pitching kind of what you would expect them to be like when you have a lot of basically lottery tickets that you bought in spring training, hoping one of the guys would stick. I mean, you brought in Canning and Marquez and Buehler and Giolito, and you already had Matt Waldron. I mean, you had these 5 guys competing for basically one spot. JP Sears, right? That's 6 dudes that you're competing for just one spot. And unfortunately, those 6 dudes magically became your rotation. You can't really grade them that poorly.
No, you really can't. And the starting rotation, again, it started out so good. I mean, there were a couple of loose ends, especially towards the back end of the starting rotation. But again, when you lean so heavily on the pitching staff in its entirety, because your offense can't produce, it's going to affect them. So now you hope that it's a reset. It's not a long time off, especially for guys in the rotation who are used to getting this sort of rest. But you're really hoping for a turnaround and a full-on hard reset that this All-Star break kind of gives, because now you hope that it recharges some of these guys in the starting rotation to be able to go out and do what they were doing at the first half of the first half instead of the second half of the first half.
Was there something they should have done during the offseason for the pitching? Is there a move that should have been made? Did they handle this offseason well when it comes to building the pitching staff?
Based on everything we saw from the...
We're going to answer that on the other side.
Okay.
As we go to break, we had to get to break. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego Summer Sports Station 97 through the Fan. 10:39 on a Thursday, getting ready for a fun weekend here in San Diego. It's hot outside. It was hot yesterday. We were doing the update you on the Project Crucible that we've been doing. I'm out there, and it sounds like they have some special guests today from the military.
Oh,
Yeah, it might be tough.
oh,
Sounds tough. Sounds pretty tough.
sucks being a football player.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it does. Okay, it's a lot of hard work. I think they're starting to go through it right now. I mean, today, by the time I get there today, because who knows what time they woke up this morning. I left yesterday around like 9 o'clock. They probably still had a little bit more to do, and then they sleep over there, and then this morning, who knows what time they were going to wake up. I was told they might have been waking up at they might have woken up at like 4:30 this morning, which is rough.
That is oof size.
Yeah.
Large.
Ouch. Yes. So anyway, we'll see how they are today. When I got there yesterday, they were already beat up pretty good. I thought they usually do it start at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, 11 o'clock, in the morning. They start them at 6 a.m. this year. So that's some long days. 6 a.m. yesterday all the way to 10. Probably woke up at 4:30. And then they go through the entire day today, and then they go to about noon tomorrow.
Coach Doyle logging how many times these kids were in the chat.
You know what? That should be the case. I forgot about that stuff. I gotta go get pulled the receipts. You gotta start doing extra stadiums for all those. You know what? You're totally right. That's why when they were raising havoc in our YouTube chat, I was like, they're gonna get theirs eventually. Project Crucible is happening this summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually hell on earth. They did but here's the thing that
you just wait until everyone's done. They're walking back, and then you 5, come over here. You just pull up the chat log. Be like, start running.
Running is the least of their worries at this point. I just
No, but you do it at the very end when they're dead tired and they get that relief of, oh, thank God it's finally done. And then you just, bam, hit them with the chat logs.
Here's the what they really do. It's more than just running. It's it's a lot of mind games of critical thinking while you're tired. So yesterday they go down to the beach volleyball court and they do stuff with sandbags. They got to fill them up. They got to dump them out. They got to have a certain weight. But here's how they do this. They break the group up into 8 teams. It's 8 teams of 8 roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And then every team's got a leader. And then they go to one of our coaches that was in the military, and he gives them the instructions. And then they have to go back and tell their teams what the instructions are. But in the instructions, he's pretty fair on the sense of, all right, I need you to do this. How long do you think you could do it in? And they set the time as long as it's realistic. They always set the time way too fast. And it's oh, we need you to do all of this. Okay, cool. How long do you think you can do it? 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not going to take you 2 minutes. It's going to take you right. So they kind of do it to themselves a little bit. So they have those. When I got there, they went out to the beach. They had to fill up their sandbags with sand from the beach volleyball court, and they had to fill it up a certain weight. And they're well, how much weight? And they're let's say, and the kids came up with 40 pounds. And so they had to fill it up with 40 pounds. Every squad had their own bag. And then the guy that runs it, Connor, goes through and he picks out a bag from each group. And if that bag didn't weigh between 40 and 42 pounds, that group then owed, right? So it's some kid filled up his bag thinking it was 40 pounds. It was 28 pounds, right? It's way off. And so they determined how much weight they wanted to do for the deal. And it's not because people always go, oh, it's probably some cruel stuff. It's a lot of mental toughness and going through, handling adversity when you're tired. And there's a lot of journaling and stuff too. They like write letters to themselves. I mean, it's a pretty cool experience. They just get, wasted in terms of like their bodies of energy. But that was one of them. My favorite one is
it like Full Metal Jacket where one of your group leaders can get fired for being bad as a group leader?
I don't know if they fire that. No, because the group leaders are pretty much like they just tell them what they get told of what the instructions are. And they've gotten wise where now they just have one person tell all 8 teams so they don't all screw it up. But the one that like one of my favorites is always because this is one that's hard. It goes, so there's 8 teams of 8 and we're on the field and it's like, I need for you to go into the weight room and each team needs to bring out a total of 500 pounds of weight. Right. And so these kids are tired. They're not thinking. They're just going in there like 500 pounds. It seems like a lot. They're just grabbing all this weight. And then when they go back and we calculate the weight, I'm not going to make you do math on the radio. For about 8 guys for 500 pounds is about 62 and a half pounds per person. Guys are walking out there with hex bars with 245s on each side, which is, 135 pounds. They're grabbing the 100. They're like trying to suitcase carry 120-pound dumbbells. I mean, I was going through it. The first group I calculated was like 700 and something pounds.
Jesus.
The second group I counted was about 625. I'm like, okay. One group was 505, which is nails. I mean, that's very good. I think they actually started to like do the math as they go through. One group, I looked at the weights. I'm like, this is going to be super high. I calculated, dude. One group brought out almost 1,000 pounds of weight, 950 pounds of weight. I'm like, I'm like, you guys realize this is a lot, right? Coach, I think we're really close. I'm like, do you know how much you had? Just over 500? I'm like, 950 pounds.
I'm an overachiever. That would have been my response. I'm an overachiever, Coach.
So they have to go in and out, back and forth. So they brought all the weights back, and then they had to collectively get 4,050 pounds, which is every group still bringing the 500 plus 50 total pounds. And so they had to all like bring it all back out. They actually did pretty well on that. They got to, as all 8 teams combined, they brought out they were off, but they brought out 4,400 pounds. But the caveat to that is you can't just like get a bunch of weight and be like, oh, we're going to get the threshold, because after they brought out the 4,400 pounds, then they had to carry the weight
all back in.
No, back and forth on the 100 field, on the 100-yard field. All right, we need to move all this weight to the other end zone. So it's a lot of like stuff that's very, very much like pushing your body to the limit, but it's also a lot of thinking. And if you do the thinking part well and you pay attention and you follow instructions, it makes it way easier than it needs to be. And if you don't do that, you are just adding more difficulty to your task.
Now, that 505 pounds, would they be allowed, like if they brought out a 45-pound plate, would they be able to bring that back in, or once it's out, it's out?
What are you talking about? Like, no, for the
like to get the 500 on the nose, if they brought out like a 45-pound plate, would they realize, oh, we're going to be 5 pounds over, let's bring that 45
run it back
out,
inside?
Yeah,
and
then
they
try to
could have if they wanted to, but but they had 8 minutes to do it.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know, like, if once the weight is out, it's out, and that counts. No. You can't bring it back in.
At that point, none of them wanted to bring it back anyway. What I thought was fun, the part that was, there was a couple of things, and I'm not supposed to give them like hints, but I like to mentally start to go, what's the best strategy for this? There was one where I was like, I just watched them for the sandbags. I knew they were going to have to do it like 50 times because they were never going to get the 40 pound. They usually go, how fast can you fill the sandbag, right, to full? And they go like, a minute. It's like, you're not going to be able to fill it in a minute.
Oh, you ain't, dude.
So you have to like, there's like techniques you have to do. Like you'd have to like pull the bag tight and kind of slide it through the sand. That's probably what I would try. Because grabbing it like individually, like just trying to like throw
Like scoop
those sandbags
sand
are
in.
heavy.
Yeah.
You can hold like 75 to almost 90 pounds worth of sand in a sandbag.
Mm-hmm.
And so they keep trying to do it, but they have to tie their sandbag. And they're tying it so tight that it's almost impossible for them to take it off. And when they have to go empty the sandbags in a certain amount of time, the hardest part is like undoing the tie that they did to fill up the sandbag. It's like, bro, you're going to probably have to do this another 6 times. After the second time, why would you tie it super tight anymore? You got to have these high school kids like start thinking a little bit, because they're not. I as a coach of high school athletics now for the last 10 years, I don't know where they're learning their critical thinking skills sometimes. And I know they're just teenagers, but I just feel like we've trained a lot of robots on how to pass a test and not how to think for themselves. And it's just trying to undo a lot of that, try to get them to think a little bit. I mean, it's just like, bro, what? The weights are funny. Today, they're doing stuff with the high-ranking military individuals that are here in town. I'll just leave it at that. And so they'll probably be doing some pretty intense stuff today. But again, it's a lot of critical thinking. It's thinking when you're tired. I mean, that's hard to do. When you're exhausted, it's hard to solve problems.
Yep.
But those are great life skills to have. I mean, you're trying to train them for regular season, playing in a game, and you're tired and you're trying to figure out a problem, like defensively, offensively. You got to have as clear of a mind as possible. But it's very interesting. Every time you watch, like, oh, this is brutal. But then, like, the kids love it at the end. They say like their favorite part of the season is Crucible, and it's amazing to me because I didn't have to do it. They started doing it after I graduated, and I'm like, this looks miserable. But they do a lot of like breaks in between. The other thing too. So, do you know who Mike Haynes is?
No. Sorry.
NFL Hall of Famer Mike Haynes played for the Raiders. Well, he had 2 of his kids go to Cathedral, and they were both on state championship teams. And his wife is like super, super health.
Mm-hmm.
She donates her time to cook for them, breakfast,
nice.
lunch, and dinner. And they had like the most whole food, clean eating possible during this thing. So they're getting well fed with, a pasture raised chicken and like all organic, whatever. And like there's some pretty really good whole food meals. So they're making out on some good eating. They're probably not getting a lot of sleep, but when this thing is over, they usually are.
Yeah, it's a bonding experience.
Good team building thing too.
Yeah, it's a bonding experience. You really get you have to at that point. When you're doing something like that, you have to get close to your teammates after something like that. And also, I mean, that's one of those things you look back on. It's like, hell, we can make it through this. We could do anything out on that field.
And we've had some teams that like can't handle it. Like we've had some teams with some bad eggs in recent years where they can't get through the first thing because they're yelling at each other the whole time. And that team usually never does well like that season. This group's very young. They're getting through it. I think they're handling a lot of things a lot better. They're not really yelling at each other too much. They're working as a team, which is great. And this is what we've done for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. And it's worked out. And a lot of guys love being a part of it. And it's different. Like there's a lot of schools here that will go to they'll go hang out with the SEALs for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go do stuff with the Marines at Miramar for 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours. Like, oh, that was really, these guys are doing this from 6 a.m. on Wednesday to noon on Friday. Staying at school, like doing, and they love it. I eventually, like during it, they don't love it. They don't love it during it, but
of course, yeah.
A lot of the guys are handling it a lot better. And then after they go through it once, it gets easier for them the next year. Like the seniors, by the time they're seniors, the seniors are like they know what to expect. They mentally prepared themselves. The guys that are having a little bit of issue, obviously, are the freshmen and the sophomores. We don't make our JV or freshman teams do it, but the guys that are good enough to be on varsity, they're kind of really like, do I need to really be up here right now? Do I really need to be with the varsity team? But it's pretty cool to see these guys come together like this. And I like the journaling aspect. Like last night I left at the time where they wrote a letter to themselves that they are going to read at the end of the season about what it's like going through this and all that other stuff. So it's pretty cool. They have guest speakers. We have a lot of military personnel that come out and do some guest speaking during this. So it's not all work. They do have a lot of breaks mixed in. They get taken care of with the water and everything like that. But it's a pretty cool experience.
I wonder how many of those guys are going to continue to do similar exercises after, like the ones that really enjoy
I'm going to
it,
tell
the
you
ones
right
that
now,
help out.
Jackson Moy, who's now with the Rams, saw our Instagram and responded to it going, I am having major flashbacks to this and I don't want to do this anymore. That guy's in the NFL. When we come back, we got a guest. Yanselson. Mr. Yanselson will join us from the San Antonio Missions. 11 o'clock on a Thursday. Talking Padres baseball today. Just went through the Project Crucible that I was dealing with the high school kids that I coach. I'll be seeing them at about 3 o'clock today whenever I get back up. I have time. Like Juan said, meanwhile, Coach Braden is eating epic fries. You know what? I've been there before. Anyway, I'm going to go home. The best part about living close to cathedrals, I can go home, change, eat lunch, and then cruise over. It takes like 7 minutes. It's not that bad. So I'll be doing that today. I don't know how late I'm going to stay today, with the Friday coming up, but looking forward to going up there. We need to get locked into Padres baseball. We're going to talk about the pitching staff in just a little bit, but do want to talk more about what's going on in the minor leagues. They are also on a little bit of a break. It's the second half of their season, and joining us like he does once every couple weeks, play-by-play man of the San Antonio Missions, Brian Yanselson. Brian, good to have you on. Hopefully you had a couple of good days off before you dive into the ceremonial second half of the Mission season. What's going on, man?
Not much. Thank you so much for having me as always. It's a pleasure. And yeah, it's been a nice little break, but the Missions have been playing well. So I know we're all ready to get back in action here at the Wolf tomorrow.
Missions have been playing well. They notoriously have been one of the better farm teams for the San Diego Padres. And of course, they have the top prospect in Ethan Salas. And we're getting closer to the trade deadline. So I'm sure that's always fun as a member of one of the minor league affiliates. But when we talk about Ethan Salas, you got to talk about the Futures game. He played pretty well in the Futures game in limited action. What did you see out of Ethan Salas in the Futures game, not only representing the Padres, but the San Antonio Missions?
Yeah, it was phenomenal to see him up there again, wearing the San Antonio Missions hat and everything, representing us so well. And I think the two at-bats that he had were classic Ethan Salas at-bats. If you watch them, long, taking close pitches, fouling pitches off, and he ended up having an opposite field single, hit very hard to left, and a walk, which even the broadcasters on the NBC broadcast said, you don't usually see a walk in the Futures game, but that is just what Ethan Salas is all about. He has such a good eye, and that's what stood out, I think, more than anything this year, is how he's not willing to chase. He just isn't. You have to throw him a strike or else he's not going to swing. And so I thought that was really cool that even in a platform like that and a stage as big as that, he was just his typical self.
We're talking with Brian Yanselson, the play-by-play man of the San Antonio Missions, joining us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. So Missions finished up their ceremonial first half, even though they're in the second half of their season, with a 3-game winning streak against Midland. And now will be the Corpus Christi Hooks. It's the Frisco Rough Riders coming up, Amarillo again. What is on tap for the Missions here coming up in the second half? Where are they in the standings already in this second half? And what are some of the big series coming up for the Missions?
Well, it feels a little early to some to look at standings, but honestly, with how it works in the minor leagues, as you explained already in the second half, it's never really too early. So we're 18 games in. We've got 51 left in the second half, and the Missions are 2 games back of Midland for first place. So those 3 wins were absolutely huge up in the Permian Basin, because Midland took the first 3, and if they had taken even 2 of those last 3, which they easily could have, those were a couple of great comebacks by the Missions. They were down 4 and 5 respectively in the last 2 games, yet were still able to win. They could have been 6 back if they had dropped those. Instead, they're just 2 back, and with plenty of time and room to grow. So it was a really big way to end that half of the season and enter this calendar second half with refreshed minds, refreshed bodies, and you've got 3 division opponents coming up: Corpus Christi, Frisco, and Amarillo. So everything's right in front of San Antonio, honestly, when you look at who you play, and you play Midland 6 more times, you play Amarillo 12 more times. Frisco already won the first half, so they don't matter in the sense of the standings. They only matter when you play them head to head. But the Missions control their own destiny, and they'll be able to play the teams in front of them and that they'll be battling with. So it should be a lot of fun.
Individually, I don't think we have talked with you since the Padres had that week where they just moved everybody all over the minor league system. Who were some of the big names a couple of weeks ago that the Missions were getting picked up, and how have some of the new faces done since becoming Missions a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, so we lost Romeo Sanabria and Andrew Moore, who were having great campaigns once again for the Mission. So they're up in AAA. And we got several new faces here, including Tucker Musgrove, who's the number 9 prospect in the Padres system. So he's an exciting arm that has been in the back end of the bullpen, already coming into some high leverage situations, kind of figuring things out still. He's had a lot of strikeouts. He's also had a lot of walks. So that's just kind of been figuring out that the AA batters won't chase as much, but still very early on for him. Clay Edmondson, another reliever that got called up from Fort Wayne, he had unbelievable numbers with high A. And so we'll see if that continues to translate. He's kind of that funky side armor from the right side, so he's really difficult to hit. He's been already pretty impressive. And Jake Cunningham, he was released by the Baltimore Orioles last year, even though he was a 5th-round pick just in 2023. And the Padres scooped him up. He had a terrific start to the season in Fort Wayne, 15 home runs, including 3 in one game. And he has picked up right where he left off here in San Antonio. He's hitting about 300 since getting called up. He's already got a couple of home runs, including here in San Antonio. His very first game at the Wolf, which is notoriously a pitcher's park, he was able to homer deep to left field. So he has been very impressive and added a really good boost to the lineup. And I think Missions fans have already gotten to love him. So it's been exciting to have new names. We've already got a couple new ones as well on the road trip that haven't played at home yet. Jamie Hitt got the call up from Fort Wayne. Matthew Watson joins the team this week. So you never know who you're going to see. And I know that Missions fans are just excited to see some winning baseball.
We're getting close to the trade deadline, Brian, and I want you to tell what your craziest trade deadline story has been. I'm sure there's a lot for you to talk about. I know Tim Haggerty joined us last week to tell us one of his from AAA. Seems like you are a little bit more affected than a lot of the other minor league affiliates. But before we get to that, obviously, for most of our listeners, they want to know what kind of prospects can get traded away for the Padres to maybe buy. It doesn't really sound like the Padres are going to buy massively big, but who knows over the next 16 games. And they seem to find value more than just their top 30 prospects. So who are some of the players that might not be getting the top 30 prospect recognition, but is providing very good depth and has had, some really good first halves of the season that you could see other teams maybe wanting, or the Padres maybe be wanting to keep because they have outplayed maybe what their expectations have been?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think something I've wondered all season long, and I mean this with the best form of respect to him, is what Tirso Ornelas is doing in San Antonio. I really don't know. He is crushing it. He leads the team in home runs, in RBIs. He has 12 homers, 38 runs batted in. Over this past week against Midland, he hit almost 400. And it's someone who was in the major leagues a year ago in April and got a decent run, had a week or two at the beginning of the year before going back to El Paso. And it's just such an interesting question as to why exactly he's been here so long. You would think maybe he'd even get a chance to go back to AAA, but the Padres must see that he has to prove himself here at a pitcher's park like Petco. That's really the only explanation I can think of, because he has been really, really solid for the Missions, and he's still only 26. And so you have to wonder, do the Padres see a future in him? Do other teams see a potential in him? So I think that's a really neat name to keep track of. In terms of somebody else that hasn't been on the top 30 rankings, but has had a great year, we talked about him early on in April or May when I joined, but Carson Tucker has continued to be really impressive. He just hit his first home run, but that's not his game. He's been hitting near the 300 mark all season long, has been pretty perfect in the stolen base category, and he plays up the middle, shortstop, second base. That's a former first-round pick by the Guardians. They released him a couple of years ago, just didn't pan out with the Cleveland organization, and the Padres scooped him up, and he has had a really, really strong year. So he could be a name that, if the Padres see some potential in him, whether for themselves or if another team says, hey, we like what we've seen in a new setting and maybe they want to give him a chance as well, that could be someone outside the top 30. Because then, of course, you've got Salas, you've got Carpathios, who's had a pretty good year, and then some of the pitchers, Garrett Hawkins, Tucker Musgrove, and Miguel Mendez. Those are the top 30 guys. But those are some of the answers for outside the top 30 that I can think of.
We're talking with Brian Yanselson, play-by-play man of the San Antonio Missions. He joins us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. Obviously, we are 16 games away from the trade deadline, and that has been kind of crazy, I think, for a lot of minor league affiliates of the San Diego Padres over the years. I know that you have probably experienced the handful of players that have unfortunately had to, pack their bags and leave in the middle of games. But what has been the craziest experience you have had in being a broadcaster for a Padres minor league affiliate around the trade deadline?
Well, you tell me how much time you have. So for the past couple of years, it has been crazy to say the least. There was one story that to anybody else would have been automatically the craziest. But then we had last year, so I'll just tell both of them quickly. Last year on the trade deadline day itself, we were in Frisco and we had 4 missions traded on the same day. Henry Baez and Braden Net were a part of the Leo DeVries trade for Mason Miller. And so that was first in the day. I remember my phone was buzzing while I was working on my game notes in the hotel. I saw that Mason Miller was coming to the Padres, but we didn't know for who. And when I tell you, I booked it to the lobby in Frisco because I was very nosy. I wanted to know what was going on, and I just wanted to see who I would run into. And sure enough, as time went on, we found out it was Henry and Braden. And then I got to the ballpark. I want to say in Frisco, you can get to the ballpark later and later as the summer goes along. It's very hot. It's a crammed booth. But that day, I was there as early as humanly possible just to be around everything. We literally walk into the clubhouse at the same time as the manager, Luke Mons at the time, and he says, Valenzuela's gone, and Brandon Valenzuela got traded to the Blue Jays. And I remember everybody being crushed and shocked by that one because he was nowhere in conversations. He was such a staple mission, and he was just gone like that. And then a few minutes later, the team was so derailed by everything that was happening that they had to close the clubhouse, a closed door meeting to kind of gather everybody. And as that meeting's happening, I'm on the outside of it. Tyson Neighbors walks out. He's on the phone, and he literally looks over at me, and he does a peace sign. And then he hangs up, and he comes and tells me, he's like, oh, I just got traded to the Orioles. And so on that one day, 4 missions traded: Valenzuela, Tyson Neighbors, Henry Baez, and Braden Net. So that was very, very crazy how it all happened just in one day. But I think I will never forget, in Little Rock, Arkansas, nowhere near the trade deadline. It was the first week of May. I was on the air, on the radio, doing play-by-play, and somebody from the Arkansas Traveler staff had to tap me on the shoulder, showed me a tweet, and it was Ken Rosenthal saying that Luis Arraez was being traded to the Padres for Nathan Martorella, Jacob Marcy, and Usak Go. And as I'm processing this, I'm looking up. It's during the inning, and I see the names. I'm like, wait, that's our guy. That's our guy. And then fans might remember from the viral clip, Nathan Martorella was on second base when Luke Mons, our manager, had to pull him from the game during the middle of the inning, and him, Marcy, and Usak Go had to walk across the field to the clubhouse as they were just traded. So I don't think anything will ever top a guy literally being pulled from second base during the game for a trade. Even though it wasn't a trade deadline move, it was certainly a trade that I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's a pretty remarkable thing. I think, last week Tim Haggerty mentioned that with so many moving parts, there was one time where there was a guy on the mound for the El Paso Chihuahuas that just jumped in because of trades. They had to pull him up from Double-A, in which I forget what the opposing team was. They knocked on the window. Who is that pitching? And Tim Haggerty was like, I have no idea. I have no idea who that is. So I'm sure that makes it difficult. I do want to ask a follow-up. You're working on the game notes. I mean, is it even safe to work on game notes on August 3rd, or do you just have to kind of wait it out?
Oof. No, it's not safe at all. You have to wait it out. You just never know. I mean, 2 years ago, Robbie Snelling was traded on deadline day as well. And it's funny that that's the tamest of the stories, but even this one is, I was next to him when he was getting a phone call, and he had to go into the trainer's room and have the conversation. And that's when he was traded to Miami. And so the last 3 years that I've been here in this capacity, we've had a crazy trade. And so all of us are on the edge of our seats always. And as it rolls around this year, you just never know what could happen. What's unique about this deadline is there's a chance that it goes the other way for the first time in quite a while. I mean, I know there's rumors about Mason Miller being traded again, this time away, and maybe some prospects come our way, but you just never know. And so we're ready for anything. And no, I will not submit my game notes on August 3rd until deadline has passed.
That's called experience, Brian. You've been doing it long enough. That's an experienced broadcaster right there, especially one that's with the Padres minor leagues. What's coming up this weekend for the Missions? I know I mentioned they're playing Corpus Christi. If they have announced starters, who's starting this weekend, and what do you expect against Corpus this weekend?
We don't have our rotation quite yet. They're still figuring things out, a chance to refresh things, but I would expect the top two names to be who have led the Texas League in innings for most of the season. Jagger Haynes has been number one in innings pitched for the entire season, and Ian Koenig has been not far behind. So I would expect them to be right there in the mix. And then Eric Yost has also been extremely consistent, kind of under the radar. Every time you look up and see his numbers, you're like, wow, he's really having a great season, even though he doesn't have the flashy numbers. They're just super consistent. And you mentioned Tim Haggerty in El Paso going up for one day. On July 4th, America's 250th birthday, he found out the night before that he was going to get called up to AAA to start on July 4th and then come right back. And he's back with us, the Missions now. That was just an emergency thing, but you gotta be ready to take a last minute trip to El Paso. But he's been really solid for the Mission. So I would expect those to be the three, even though we haven't had it announced. But with the All-Star break, a chance to reset things. And so I know the coaching staff maybe just making some moves and wanting to face a Corpus team that we've already played 18 times. So maybe throwing some wrenches in there to throw some surprises. But at the ballpark itself, it'll be really fun. Harry Potter night. We've got a Manu Ginobili bobblehead giveaway. And so a lot to look forward to this weekend.
Brian, have a good time on the call. Have a good call. And probably the next time we speak, it might be either deadline week or right after the deadline. So I'm sure you'll add some more stories for us the next time you're on.
Well, let's just hope I don't get traded before then.
Yeah, that's true. You never know at this point. Brian, appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. Always appreciate it.
Brian Yancelson, the play-by-play man of the San Antonio Missions, giving us an update on San Antonio in AA. I love this. You can't ask that question to the play-by-play guys of random teams. That is strictly a minor league affiliate of an AJ Preller run ball club, Frank. That's what that is.
No, that's exactly where I thought he would go to with the Arise story, because I remember seeing that and being like, wow, I can't remember anything being that crazy where guys are getting pulled from games. Usually when trades do happen like that, the manager kind of has a little bit of an inkling and they hold them out of the lineup, and it's a lot more private and hid away. But yeah, pulling guys out of a game in the middle of it because they got traded and walking through. I completely forgot Woo-Suk Go was even on the roster at any point in time. But yeah, I mean, that is an incredible story that only this organization can produce.
I think the other two guys, I knew Tim Haggerty was going to have some good ones. Brian's been here long enough. I think the Fort Wayne and Lake Elsinore broadcasters a little too young.
I think Josh Richardson. I think this is Richardson's first year, so I don't think Lake Elsinore would have anything too
right.
crazy.
Well, and a lot of those guys don't end up getting traded either. I mean, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's interesting to see. I mean, I wouldn't work. I mean, working on your game notes that week is a waste of time. You might as well set them on fire. When we come back,
so you make alternates just in case this guy isn't here. Just have a file of one with the guy, and then one without him.
When we come back, we'll talk more about the Padres pitching staff and what could have been over the offseason when we return. 5 years ago, college sports changed forever. On July 1st, 2021, athletes were officially allowed to profit from their name, image, and likeness. And at the time, biggest NIL deals were around $20,000. Today, some college quarterbacks are making millions, and NIL has become a multi-billion-dollar industry. But the biggest surprise wasn't athletes getting endorsement deals. It was how quickly NIL became tied to recruiting and building championship teams. The NCAA tried to create rules, but college sports moved faster than anyone expected. 5 years later, the biggest question is this: did NIL create a better future for college athletics, or did it create a system where money determines who wins? Either way, there was no going back now to the old version of college sports, and that is our subject today on the weekly college sports update. This week marks a major milestone that somehow passed without much celebration across college athletics. July 1st, 2026 was a 5-year anniversary of name, image, and likeness. And it begs the question of, has it made this better for college athletics or worse for college athletics? And before we start diving into why it began and everything like that, to answer the question, I think it's made it great for college athletes and worse for college sports. And more specifically, great for high-paying college football and basketball players and terrible for the rest of college athletics.
Yes, 100%. And it's, again, I just wanted a video game, man. That's all I wanted. I just wanted NCAA college football back. But other than that, I mean, it is spun wildly out of control. It has been great for the individual. It has not been great for the atmosphere and college athletics as a whole, the way it was anticipated it being.
It's very good for the top 1%.
Mm-hmm.
The top 1% that was already going to make this kind of money at the next level anyway. I'm sure there's a couple of I wouldn't say feel good stories, but there's been some people that probably have benefited from this being the top in their sport in a non super lucrative professional sport like softball, like some of these other, Olympic sports, if you will, where the top echelon players are making a lot of money compared to what they would be doing previously. But, for football and college basketball, like the guys that are getting all the money were still the guys that were going to get all the money at the next level. Sure, there's some role players that are probably making some money now, but, overall, it's turned, I think, college football for the worse than it is for the better. And the only one that's really benefiting, again, is the top 1% of the earners. So from that perspective, I think this is a something that obviously needs to be fixed, but also not necessarily something to be celebrated in college athletics.
No, and going back to when this started, you take a look at Hannah and Haley Cavender. Those were the two first ones. They were social media stars. They also happened to play basketball for Fresno State, and they signed endorsement deals for $20,000. Same thing with Derek King, who was the quarterback for Miami at the time. They signed endorsement deals for $20,000, which was huge. It was a big payday at the time when NIL first started. And now you're seeing what NIL has done. NIL spending across college athletics is projected to reach $4.5 billion this year. So what Jose Feliciano paid for the Padres would just barely be able to cover, or actually just miss being able to cover all of NIL sponsorship this season for college athletics.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest surprise wasn't that athletes can make money. The surprise was how quickly NIL became connected to basically pay for play.
Yep.
I'm not that surprised about it. I mean, once you open the floodgates, you knew this was going to happen. I mean, you're talking about, sports, the college athletics where there was massive under the table cheating going on before you were allowed to actually pay players. There's no real surprise to me that all of a sudden, some random player's name, image, and likeness was going to be worth way more than what fair market value was for a offensive tackle, trying to promote a dealership, right? Like, and all of a sudden these budgets for these places for quote marketing started to go through the roof. I mean, the idea was for people like the Cavender twins to not have to sacrifice money because, not have to sacrifice income because they're popular on social media in order to play college athletics. It was for people that have ever gotten like a $20 meal, because you were a poor college kid, that not costing you like games, right? Like that was the whole reason that you did the name, image, and likeness. And that was, that needed to happen, right? I mean, it was some of those
100%.
rules were so archaic and so ridiculous. Braden Surprenant. We're going to get to some World Cup action here in the next hour. But we do want to get to what we have teased probably for the last 3 segments. This pitching staff.
Roughly.
I hope you remember what you were going to say, because I said we'll get to that when we come back, and then
Sure.
we did the Crucible thing, and then we did the guest thing. All right, so when you look at what A.J. Preller has done with the starting staff, I think we're in agreement the starting staff is nothing to write home about, right? The starting rotation, it's not very good. But at the same time, considering the circumstances of maybe some financial restraints, not having a large farm system, the fact that the Padres, signed Michael King, do you think, and I'll have my answer after Frank, do you think this is the best rotation A.J. Preller could have assembled this offseason, considering the circumstances of payroll flexibility and prospect capital?
Yeah, knowing the budgetary restraints and knowing everything that happened, like surrounding Yu Darvish, and that they had spent that money, I think this is more or less the best he could have done without like really going for it and trading somebody. You got Michael King, your centerpiece, back. You were hoping for a little bit more out of Nick Pivetta. That didn't work out. You were hoping that you would have had Joe Musgrove potentially back by now, at least in a limited capacity. That hasn't happened yet. So I think there were a lot of, he built this rotation leaning on a lot of hopes that unfortunately just haven't worked out. So I think, yes, he did the best he could do given what he had, but a lot of things that he was hoping to break his way just haven't.
I mean, I look at like the offseason, right? And these are the free agents that were available. Dylan Cease. Were you really going to sign Dylan Cease to the amount of money that he was asking for?
No.
Probably not. I mean, I look at Dylan Cease and everybody's like, oh, we could have had Dylan Cease. Could you have had Dylan Cease?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think you were going to be able to afford Dylan Cease, nor did I think anybody really wanted to see him back in a Padres uniform because of like the year he had last year.
Yeah, and if he does that again, you sign him to what is he making in Toronto right now?
It's like $30-something million.
Yeah, if he signs that, then everyone's screaming, oh, it's another dead weight contract. It's this. No, that was Dylan Cease. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for your 2 years. Thank you for the no-hitter. Best of luck.
In a Padres uniform, he had a 5.1 WAR. He was 22-23, 3.98 ERA, and 65 starts. I mean, he knew he was going to start games for you. Pitched 357 in the third innings. 439 strikeouts, but again, like his ERA plus in a Padres uniform was 104.
He's making $26.75 million. Next year, that goes up to 33. Well, 26.75 is the luxury tax.
Well, we talked about ERA plus last year. I mean, yesterday with Mason Miller, right?
Yeah.
It views adjusted for players' ballparks, adjusted for a lot of different circumstances, and it puts it on a scale of an average player is 100. And anything over 100 is like how much percentage better he is than an average player. And in his Padres career, the 2 years combined, he had a 104 ERA plus, which means he was 4% better than an average pitcher that you couldn't afford to sign, hoping he was going to magically turn around. It's worked out so far in Toronto. First year All-Star, first time as an All-Star. It's his he is putting up a career year right now. I mean career year.
Mm-hmm.
The only other year he was like this was when he was 26 in 2022 for the White Sox, where he had a 2.20 ERA. He was 14-8, 6.4 WAR. This is the season that he might be able to be a little bit better than that. But that's not something that you knew was going to happen.
No.
But then you go down the list of other players. Like, you weren't going to sign Framber Valdez, not with this budget that you had. You're going to have Ranger Suarez. I mean, maybe you get Nick Martinez, right? This is a hindsight move too. Nick Martinez, he's a guy that, the Padres had. A.J. Preller found him. He knew about him in Texas. He went to Japan. He brought him back. And he signed a 1-year, $13 million deal. Now, it accounts for $13 million towards the AAV. He gets $9 million this year. He has a $20 million mutual option for next year, which, as good as Nick Martinez is, I don't think the Rays are going to pick up because the Rays never pick up contracts like that. Guy's an all-star. But what was Nick Martinez the year before in Cincinnati? The 2 years before in Cincinnati. Why did he leave San Diego?
He was a starter that couldn't do it.
He
went
wanted
to the bullpen.
He wanted to be a starter. That's why he left. I don't think the Padres had the opportunity to make him a starter. He goes to Cincinnati, and he ends up being mostly a bullpen piece. He pitched in 42 games his first year, 16 starts. He pitched in 40 games last year, 26 starts. He couldn't do it. And this year, he's 18 games, 18 starts, 2.65 ERA, career year for 35-year-old Nick Martinez. This is a Nick Martinez stand show. We love Nick Martinez, but to take the risk on Nick Martinez for $13 million, and that only fills one spot, that's a massive risk for the Padres to take. Because what happens if Nick Martinez has the same year this year as a member of the Padres as he had last year in Cincinnati with a 4.45 ERA? You have even more problems because you only have one guy. Then you throw in the injuries. Who's pitching for you? I think based on the circumstances that AJ Preller was dealing with, you were hoping to get one of the 5 guys they brought in to hit. The Nick Pivetta situation. Darren Smith brought that up on the roundtable of like a move that should have been made, and he clearly said hindsight for that move. But I understand the could have traded this guy, but unless you actually know the details of what the trade would have been that they said no to, which, by the way, you never get. You only find out about the trades that actually happen. You very rarely, Frank, know what the exact deal was for a player that you said no to. There was no guarantee that you were going to get something back that you were hoping for, and maybe AJ Preller didn't see future value in some of the prospects that might have been offered for Nick Pivetta. So I don't blame him because that's more guys that you have to fill in your rotation. Maybe you could have flipped one of those players for a better pitcher. I mean, that would be the ultimate sell high like it's a stock. But that doesn't mean you're going to get value for the current year, which obviously the Padres were trying to do because of the fact that they were just in the playoffs. There's no way any fan would have been super stoked about the Padres punting on the season before it even started.
No.
And by trading away Nick Pivetta, yeah, you probably could have got some future value, but I don't necessarily know if you would have gotten the depth that people say you were going to get. And so you roll with Pivetta. You thought you had Joe Musgrove coming back. You saw the promise out of Randy Vasquez in the month of September, and you're like, okay, well, we traded Juan Soto to get this guy back. You signed Michael King, and now it's like we really only need like one guy, but we're taking a risk here. Instead of taking a risk for $10 to $13 million on a Nick Martinez or a Dustin May or some of these other free agents that you have here, like a Zach Gallen, who probably would have cost more, a Merrill Kelly. These guys aren't doing very well. I mean, Eric Fetty, Justin Verlander, Zach Eflin, Miles Michaelis. I mean, that list isn't getting much better. As you go down the list, you even had guys that retired. Like $10 million. Or you could be like, we'll give 5 of these guys minor league deals or sign them to very small deals that probably equals $10 million, and we're hedging our bet that one of these players can turn into a number 5 starter instead of putting all my eggs in the Nick Martinez basket and hoping it works out. Based on that strategy, Frank, I think that's probably the better approach. You did not know that 35-year-old Nick Martinez was going to be an all-star.
Yeah.
You would have hit the lottery if that was the case. Mm-hmm. But if it wasn't, Then what if you would have? Then what would have you done? If you just only signed Nick Martinez and Musgrove doesn't pitch and Pivetta gets hurt, your rotation now is Michael King, Nick Martinez, and then who?
Would it have been Michael King too? Because you don't know how much money they would have had left over.
What I'm
Michael
saying
King.
is, with the amount of money that they had spent on Giolito, Canning, Bueller, Marquez,
Okay.
it's around $10 million. So that's assuming you already signed
that's
Michael
fair.
King.
Yeah.
It's like, would you rather have 5 guys battling for one, or put all your eggs in the 35-year-old Nick Martinez basket? Now, you and I both love Nick Martinez. We've had him on the show. I think he's a grinder. But to do that for a guy who's going into his age 35 season, coming off of a year where he goes with a 4.45 ERA, and who has, by the way, in the entirety of his career, yet to start and finish as a starting pitcher, that is a massive risk.
Mm-hmm.
And if it wouldn't have worked out, and Nick Martinez was a guy that was at 4-something ERA and probably more suitable for the bullpen, who's your rotation right now? Who is it? It would be Michael King, and then it would be like, I guess
Randy
Nick Martinez has
Randy
to spot
Vasquez.
start. It would still be Vasquez. You'd be rolling out J.P. Sears, Matt Waldron, and you're probably already taking a look at Jackson Wolf, hoping for the best. I mean, I already got in the YouTube chat. Martinez almost threw a no-hitter against us. I would have signed him. It's like, did you not see his numbers last year? There is nobody that's more of a Nick Martinez fan on air than us two. It would have been a massive risk. So when you consider the circumstances and don't view it from a hindsight perspective, what are the options you would have rolled with here? All of these guys are a massive risk, and if you have financial ramifications and financial pigeonholes, it's kind of hard to put this thing together, especially when you get injuries and when you have 2 of your top 3 guys that you're expecting to pitch this year go down and not pitch. It kind of makes it even worse than it already is. So to answer the question, do we think that AJ Preller did everything he possibly could to fill out this rotation considering the circumstances? I think it's hard to say no to that. I think it's yes. I honestly think it's yes.
And again, you had a lot of things you were relying on to go right, and they just have not broke your way either. Speaking of Nick Pivetta, speaking of Joe Musgrove, I mean, I think we here, you and I both thought that he was going to be a little bit closer to now All-Star break-ish time anyway. But yeah, the fact that he hasn't even started rehab assignments yet, that's not something that they could have planned for.
No. I mean, you look at some of the deals that were handed out that you're trying to find value in. I mean, it is hard. I mean, Walker Buehler's like way down this list. He's actually doing better than a lot of the players that signed bigger deals in front of him. I mean, the Angels side like Alek Manoah, who was ranked above Walker Buehler. Alek Manoah got more money than Walker Buehler this year. These are like the risks you're taking in some of these moves.
Got a banner at Angel Stadium too.
Yeah, that's right. Good for him. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. When we come back, we're going to get to our sports thread. What else is going on in the sports world? Braden Surprenant Show, setting us up on Sports Station 97 through the Fan. Baseball coverage on 97 to the Fan is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi. One price, 5 years, guaranteed. Xfinity. Imagine that. We're going to take a break from our baseball talk and get into our sports thread. What else is going on in the sports world besides, well, you know what? Not really anything at this point. Not after yesterday. Wonder what Frank came up with today. Let's get to
You know that group chat, the one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me.
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
All right, Frank, what do we got going on besides the ESPYs that nobody watched?
All right. Starting off.
Number 1.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. No, seriously though.
And that's it. Back to you.
Major League Baseball and its owners supported sending Major League Baseball players to the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, but negotiations with the Players Association have hit a snag over issues like hotel accommodations, ticket allotments, insurance, NIL rights, and a proposed mandatory participation agreement. While stars such as Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber have expressed enthusiasm about representing Team USA, union want protections similar to those negotiated by the NHL players before agreeing to the plan. With baseball returning to the Olympic stage in Los Angeles, both sides are under pressure to reach a deal that allows the game's biggest stars to compete. Should MLB players be required to participate in the Olympics if they are selected, or should representing your country always remain a personal choice?
I'm trying to figure out what exactly. So Major League Baseball wants to require their players to play in the Olympics.
If they get selected, they want to require it. Yes, they want to make it mandatory if they're selected.
What does that mean?
They have, unless they're injured, they have to play.
I know, but if they want to try out for the team and be on the team, they have to play. If they sign up to play, they can't just go, "Oh, we're in a pennant race. I'm not playing."
Yeah.
Now. All right, so they're basically saying if you're committing to this, you're committing to this.
100. Yes,
I don't mind that.
I don't mind it either.
I mean, if it was like, oh, Major League, the Team USA just put their best 26 guys on a roster and they picked you, so it's like you have to go play. They have to say this is if they get invited to play on the team and they say yes, they're holding them to having to play, essentially. Okay. I have no problem with that. Now, if it's like they get an invite, therefore they have to play, there's no like accepting or declining the invitation. They just send out invitations and therefore you got an invitation, you must go. I think that's kind of a joke. But I mean, I would imagine like this is not like I don't think this is like a draft, right? They're not getting drafted to play in the Olympics. So if they get invited, then sure. They should have to stay committed to the team. I don't see a world in which they could just tell people you're playing in this. I don't think they can do that.
No, I can't either.
Right.
Unless, like I said, unless there's an injury or something like that.
Number 2.
So they can't get out of it unless they have a valid excuse. Is that what the deal is? You know what? They're holding these guys to the standard of, all right, well, if you really want to do this and we're going to take time off, if we're going to take time off from Major League Baseball or finagle our schedule because you want to play in the Olympics, you guys better freaking play in the Olympics. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't, because honestly, like, if they're going to all sit there and go, let us play in the Olympics, and then it gets to Olympic time and there's this little bit of a break so they can play in the Olympics, and then they all just use it as as like 2 weeks off or a week and a half off, I could see where Major League Baseball could be kind of pissed off about that. It's like, hey, look, we will do this for you, but you actually have to play in it. Like, let's not make a mockery of this. I don't mind MLB coming up with that.
I thought we missed a man. My mommy says I have to be home before the sweet whites come on.
Yeah, you better schedule us to the 1 o'clock games.
England. It's happened again. It's happened again.
They choked again.
Choked in the World Cup. It's happened again. England's World Cup dreams ended in heartbreaking fashion after surrendering a 1-0 lead in the final minutes of a 2-1 semifinal loss to Argentina. Harry Kane said the defeat felt all too similar, pointing to England's inability to control games late in major tournaments, while also declining to say whether or not it was his final World Cup. The loss extends England's frustrating run of coming close without winning a major trophy and raises fresh questions about the team's approach after taking the lead. Did England lose the match because they became too defensive after taking the lead, or was Argentina simply too good when the pressure was at its highest?
I don't know. I almost feel like they were too good because it's happened almost every single one of their games, is it not? I mean, they've found a way to come back to the point that people think it's fixed. Like they all lay down it. They all laid down so Messi could score at the ends. That's how this has worked. I don't think that to be true, but you know what? I bet you a lot of people that put money on England believe that to be true. This is what Argentina has done the entire World Cup. They've done this the entire World Cup.
What a comparison. England's soccer is the Notre Dame of college football.
I believe that.
Incredible.
That's a good take by Jake.
That is very, very good.
He loses any future foul. He gets one off foul.
That game yesterday was so well in hand for them. They played so well. And then again, it harkens back to, losing in the Euro 2020 final on penalties. The amount of penalties they've lost in the World Cup. It's so continuous for that team. That's why I said I had a hard time picking them yesterday, because they always choke. And when it looked like they were actually going to get it done, it all came falling apart again. It's just unbelievable.
Number 3.
George Pickens will play in the 2026 season under the Cowboys. A $27.3 million franchise tag after the deadline for a long-term extension passed without a deal. Dallas made it clear since the spring that contract talks would wait, despite Pickens coming off a career-best season after arriving from Pittsburgh. The situation now sets up a potentially expensive decision next offseason if Pickens continues to perform like one of the best receivers in the league. Did the Cowboys make the right move by waiting on a long-term deal with George Pickens, or are they risking paying even more if he has another big year?
I don't mind. So they franchise tagged him, right? Isn't that the whole deal?
Yes, he's under the franchise
and they
tag
haven't given him an extension yet.
Correct.
I don't mind the franchise tag for like receivers because you get to keep an extra year. You get to see how good he potentially can be again, see if he can prove it again, and then you can let him walk. Like, even if he does better, here's the thing. This probably be the last year for George Pickens if the Cowboys are smart, which that's a massive if with this team. But if George Pickens is good again, and he gets, I wouldn't overpay for him. Go find somebody else. I mean, right now, you can rely on George Pickens for another year. And then to me, receivers are a dime a dozen. You can find guys like George Pickens in the draft. You can have weapons that are, his caliber when you got a guy like Dak Prescott at quarterback. Focus on the offensive and defensive lines. Let Dak cook. And then get a guy in the draft like mid to late rounds. It'd probably be better than having to overpay for a guy like George Pickens. I like franchise tags for receivers. I think it usually works out for the team in that particular case. I don't think it works out for linemen that are not a dime a dozen, and there's not a lot of them growing on trees. And you got to lock those guys up as quickly as possible.
I'm getting yelled at by my British friend over my my soccer chant. Not a fan, unfortunately.
Number 4.
The NHL season
has been announced.
It has, yes. An 84-game schedule. They've added 2 divisional games to every one season. The Carolina Hurricanes will open up the season on September 29th against the Florida Panthers.
Florida.
The NHL has had an 82-game season since 1995-96. But after some franchises complained about an imbalanced number of divisional games against rivals, the league sought to ease those concerns with an expanded schedule. Good idea, adding those extra 2 divisional-only games to the season.
So they got to play 2 teams 1 extra time?
I believe so. I believe like the Islanders get New Jersey and the Rangers 1 more time, yeah. Instead of 3, they get 4.
Sure. I guess. I don't know what the I'm sure it's to increase some revenue a little bit too, but expanding the season by 2 games when you are a league like the NHL that plays almost every day, I don't necessarily know if it really changes anything. Too bad. So, new lunchtime hour. When we come back, we'll take a look at the World Cup with a special guest. We will be joined by Jamie Watson when we return. Diego State, and that's where they got to improve.
Live and local on 97.3 The Fan. The Braden Surprenant Show starts now.
What's up, San Diego? New lunchtime hour on The Fan. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. It's like a lot of Padres baseball in the first couple of hours of the show, but we now pivot, talk a little bit of soccer here as the FIFA World Cup has now got their gold match final and their third place playoff game over the weekend. We're going to talk more about that with our guest. And today's Insider Calls presented by Lowe's. Members get more at Lowe's. MLS Season Pass analyst Jamie Watson joins us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. Jamie, we had some incredible soccer during this year's World Cup. I can't believe how fast it has moved on. We're now down to the final two teams, but that was a pretty fun World Cup from pool play all the way on. Good to have you here on a Thursday. What's up?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed getting to watch this tournament unfold because in the 40 years that I've been alive, this has been unequivocally, without a doubt, the most entertaining World Cup from start to finish. It's had everything from underdog stories and 40-year-old goalkeepers from a country named Cabo Verde that has been an internet sensation. It started the day with 45,000 followers, and by the end of the tournament has nearly 30 million followers on Instagram. It's been absolutely incredible, and ultimately it culminated with the best four teams being in the Final Four. Simply remarkable, and the World Cup final on Sunday, 1 versus 2 in the FIFA rankings. My goodness, it has just been as good as advertised.
What was your biggest? I know that we're down to like kind of the final stages, if you will, but what was your biggest surprise of the group stage, of this tournament, and what country really surprised you the most? Making a little bit of a showing to the world for the first time.
Yeah, I like this question a lot. Actually, that's really cool. I mean, we just talked about Cabo Verde and the collection of 10 islands off the coast of West Africa, players that honestly it was quite difficult to prepare. I commentated on that first game against Spain, and it was difficult to prepare because there was some players that just don't have a ton of information about them because they don't have an illustrious career, and there's not just a ton of readily available information. Yet Cabo Verde was able to get not only out of their group, but they finished second in the group with Spain, who are the European champions, who ultimately might end up being the World Cup champions. And it's pretty remarkable that of all the matches that Spain have played, the 7 games, the only match that they did not win, their 6 wins, 0 losses, 1 draw, was against Cabo Verde. So the fact that, the 67th best team in the world was able to get out of the tournament, the fact they were even there was remarkable. And, that was probably the biggest underdog story. And for the most part, even though it was an expanded tournament from 32 teams to 48 teams, we really didn't have too many crazy, wild, I can't believe this is happening teams that got out of the tournament apart from maybe Cabo Verde. So that was probably the biggest one that stood out in the group stage.
We're talking with Jamie Watson. He's an MLS Season Pass analyst. As today's calls are presented by Lowe's. Find out what you need to get projects done from brands you trust at prices you'll love. Lowe's, we help you save. Let's talk about Team USA. How would you evaluate what Team USA did in the World Cup? Success, non-success, disappointing finish, maybe. How did you think that they displayed on the world stage, through group stage, onto bracket play?
I like this question. I think there's layers to this question, and there's nuances to it, right? So coming into the tournament, the U.S. men's national team were ranked 17th in the world, and that sort of aggregated over the 3 years and 11 months that leads up to the World Cup. And so with that, the expectation was always for the U.S. men's national team to get to the round of 16. And then you hope that you get a favorable draw or a favorable matchup and you're able to put a good performance in. And the reality is, guys, if they would have gotten to the quarterfinals, it would have been simply remarkable. And it would have been one of these situations where you're going, I'm not exactly sure how this happened. Nobody's expecting anything to really come from this matchup because it would have been that sort of unprecedented for the U.S. to get there. So the fact they got to the round of 16 and they lost there, that was about the expectation. Now, it would have been nice if they did it in a way that was a bit more of a better performance from the group. I think that would have been what fans would have appreciated more. But other than the fact that they got to where they were expected to, the expectations are maybe a little bit higher because of how good the tournament started. But two things can be true at the same time. This group opportunity to exceed expectations and to continue to prolong the excitement that the entire country was feeling about this team. And they missed the mark when it happened. They just had a bad performance. That can be one thing, while simultaneously, this can also be unequivocally a massively successful World Cup in terms of soccer in the United States. Because we all saw the social media videos. We all got to see how it all unfolded. I can't think of one incident that was like, wow, this is so bad of a fan gathering. And there is nothing that really stood out to me that was like, wow, this went terribly wrong and it completely flopped. It was hugely successful. And now what my hope is that we take all this success that comes from this tournament, and in San Diego, you go watch San Diego FC play. You go and watch the NWSL leaders, San Diego Wave, go play in a game. Like, you will still find a sense of community within MLS and NWSL fans. If you missed out on that being in San Diego and not having a game there nearby, or you had to drive to LA to be able to go see it, or maybe you weren't able to get tickets for a game, you can still find that community and NWSL and MLS games. And the success from this tournament will continue on past July 19th with the final on Sunday.
Where does Team USA go from here after this particular World Cup? I mean, obviously, this is a good group that was kind of in their prime with some World Cup experience. But what does this World Cup tell you about the future of U.S. soccer?
Well, I think we've proven that maybe there's a higher expectation for soccer in this country. And now we need to try to lean into that and make sure that the resources get continued to put into this. Look, the U.S. women's national team are perennial number one in the world. Like, they have shown that there can be success at the international level for U.S. soccer. The men are not the top tier right now. They are just not. And that's the reality of the situation. I think if we can make MLS better, continue to put resources in. Look, San Diego FC, they really came in and really helped set the bar for the U.S. Teams coming into expansion in Major League Soccer. If they can continue to be able to attract better players and to be able to get bigger name U.S. stars coming back, and we can continue to push this league forward, we continue to make things better with the academies like San Diego FC is doing. You start to now see that we can grow players, and it's a generational shift. My parents took me to soccer just because it got me out of the house and stopped kicking the ball around the house. Well, it's given me my entire life, playing 12 years and now a decade into broadcasting. And now my kids grow up with soccer and their kids will grow up. We're still relatively new on the big scheme of things. So there's patience that is important, but we just have to continue to hope that we have this success with developing players and people fall in love with it. It becomes the sport of choice because, let's be honest, we've got 4 other big sports in this country to compete with, where most of the countries in the world, it is soccer and soccer alone that they grow up supporting. So there's layers to the question and to the answer, and I don't have it all, because if I did, I'm sure U.S. Soccer would pay me a lot of money to be able to answer it. But I'll end with this one. I do think that Mauricio Pochettino should still be the coach. I think he gave us an identity, and in 18 to 20 months that he was the head coach of the team looked good, and we were able to have these really high expectations. I think in 4-year time, we could be even better than what we saw at this World Cup.
We're talking with MLS season pass analyst Jamie Watson here on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. I did see this. So I'm going to ask a little bit of a follow-up about the, we're new to this and we're trying to grow the game and, trying to develop the youth. And, there was a lot of articles, there was a lot of notes about our current youth programs and how much money it costs and how it might prevent maybe some of our best athletes from pursuing soccer. I don't know if you saw any of those or what your opinion is on how we structure youth soccer and academy soccer and club soccer here in the United States, and if it is sustainable to try to get some of our best athletes. What is your opinion on this?
Oh, this is a fantastic, deep question that you're asking here. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are driving around right now in one of the most gorgeous cities in the country. And they're probably thinking, hey, my kid plays soccer and I pay a ton of money for that. Look, my parents paid a ton of money for me to play soccer. I have a kid that plays soccer where we live in Nashville, and I pay a ton of money for him to play soccer. But also some of your listeners may be saying, well, hold on, my daughter does dance And have you seen those prices? And they're not wrong, by the way. Or my son plays ice hockey, and you know what rink time costs to be able to afford all that? Look, youth sports across the board has just become a business. And the sport, like soccer in this situation, is X in the equation. It's the variable here. The problem is there's just too much of a business around this. And, the reality is a club that is making multiple millions of dollars a year to operate, they're not all going to suddenly just stop wanting to be a business and say, no, thank you. We don't want to make money anymore because we'll make it free to play. And then eventually, maybe in a decade or 2 decades from now, our national team will be 10% better, 20% better, maybe. The reality is it's almost too far gone. It is. How do you reel it back in now? It's just, there's no way to really subsidize the financial aspect to it because it's a capitalistic market where people are going to pay it. And the companies that know it, the companies are the youth soccer programs. It's not that I agree with it. I wish it was not this way. Other countries don't have this. They've proven that, but it's also been that way from day one. We're now asking to put Pandora back in the box, and there's just too much money that's being made. I don't see a way that it changes, and that's to the detriment of the growth of the sport, and it's the detriment to the U.S. men's national team and the U.S. women's national team. But unfortunately, I feel like that's just where our reality is.
World Cup final on Sunday, Spain and Argentina. Argentina has been putting up goals late and have had the comeback wins the last couple of rounds, if you will. Spain does not allow a lot of goals, if at all. How do you see this one playing out on Sunday?
Yeah, first of all, by the way to put you in a bad spot to segue to the final here after that. Just doom and gloom answer. Sorry about that. No, it'll be an incredible final. Look, you can, if Spain can replicate that performance they gave against France, where they were able to beat the most potent offense in the tournament and one of the most dynamic front four any World Cup has ever seen, then Spain will deserve to win the World Cup, and they will win the World Cup if they can replicate that performance. But Argentina has faced all different types of adversity to be able to get to the final, and they have proven that even when they're down 2-0 to Egypt in the final 12 minutes of the game, they still are capable of pulling back 3 goals and pulling out a win that seems improbable because they have the greatest of all time in Lionel Messi. So bet against Lionel Messi at your will, at your own peril, because I certainly would never do that. And the romantic in me wants to watch Lionel Messi lift the trophy again one more time and what maybe could be his final World Cup. But man, this game is just going to be so close. It will really be like, for a baseball equation, a pitcher's duel where there will not be a lot of mistakes, and you're going to have to punish your opponent when they make a mistake with some ruthlessness when you get into the final third and you get those opportunities. And the first goal is always important in the game, but especially in this matchup because it makes life really difficult if you're having to chase the game and sort of abandon tactics. But I'll be glued to the television on Sunday all day in anticipation of this final. It will be seen by upwards of 1 billion people is what they're projecting, and it'll simply be must-watch television.
As a former soccer player, a guy that played soccer his entire life, what's the juice of the third-place game for France and England, aside from maybe Mbappe trying to win the golden boot?
So that is literally the only appeal to it, is if Mbappe wants to try to win the golden boot and if he has any desire to play in the game. The juice for this third-place matchup, it's like a
hard sell, man.
Cut open. It's an orange that's been cut open and left on the side of the road for a week. There ain't much juice to it left here, because it's such a heartbreak to be one game away from playing in the pinnacle of your sport, the biggest soccer game in the world. The only thing you dream about as a player is being able to play in the final, and you are one game away. Or for England, they gave up the goal that tied it in the 85th minute. They were 5 minutes plus stoppage time away from being in that matchup. And now you got to go play again the next game. It's tough. And even the England head coach said that, Thomas Tuchel, he's like, none of these players want to be playing in this game. It's just the reality of the situation. So, yeah, maybe Mbappe scores and wins the golden boot because of it. That may be the only real appeal to it. But other than that, you're going to see a lot of players that haven't really played yet in a tournament get some time just to be able to say they've played in a World Cup. And I don't even necessarily know if it's needed of a match, but it's going to happen because there's still that appeal of third versus fourth, and another game 103 of 104 is sort of a warm up to the final the following day.
Jamie, I appreciate the time, man. I know you're very busy, got a lot of things to do. I do have one more question for you. Obviously, MLS is about to start back up after this international break. San Diego FC, had a great start to the season. Kind of the youth has hurt them defensively through most of the year after the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They got a second half here that they got to really start getting into it. And as Tyler Heap said, the sporting director of this club, we don't have to change too much. I mean, we have done really well in 80 minutes of most of these games, but it's this final 10 minutes that we have to fix. What do you think San Diego FC has to do here in the second half to try to get back in this race?
Well, first of all, my hope is that you guys get a chance to talk to Tyler Heaps as much as you possibly can, because this is one of the most elite soccer minds in the United States, and fans of San Diego FC should be very grateful that they have his acumen along with Mike Veras, those coaches, those coaching staff. They're incredible. What they were able to achieve was the standard setter in Major League Soccer for expansion teams when they first came in. Now you got to continue on to try to realize it gets more and more difficult when teams figure out how to play you. And you're right. Tyler's right. It's felt like it's been 80 minutes, but not quite 90 minutes, where we were seeing that last year, and they could leave it for late, where Andre Dreyer would score a late goal or something like that, or, Ingvartsen would score. But you've got guys that make it entertaining, make it fun to watch. They're one of the most aesthetically pleasing teams to watch in Major League Soccer. And that may feel rich as they're sitting, in 10th place in the Western Conference right now, just outside of the playoff line. But I feel like the second half of the season is going to be great for them. I feel like they're going to quickly climb to be in contention for potentially a home playoff spot when the playoffs come. And same can be said for the San Diego Wave of NWSL. They're leading NWSL right now. They've been so fun to watch all season long. So I know how great San Diego is. I was a youth player that got to go out there and play in tournaments. I've been out there as a professional, and I'm blown away. I got to do some of the She Believes Cup. San Diego is so fortunate to have good soccer, and both the Wave and San Diego FC are fortunate to have the fan base they do there. It's simply one of the best, and everybody dreams of being able to play in San Diego. So hope you guys don't take it for granted for 1 minute just how incredible it is. And I don't take it for granted to be able to be on here and talk with you guys today. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And we got some great college soccer here, some great youth soccer here in San Diego, and really great for the ratings of the World Cup. A lot of soccer.
Absolutely, it's been awesome.
In San Diego.
Let's do this again soon. This is really fun, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Jamie. That was a great conversation. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds great.
Jamie Watson, the MLS season pass analyst, joined us today on today's Insider Calls, presented by Lowe's. Members get more at Lowe's, joining us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not big bank banking, it's better. A lot to unpack with what Jamie said today on the interview. When we come back, we'll get you our World Cup date with Frank Marchese on the other end. Seattle Seahawks are about to become the most expensive NFL franchise sale in history. Paul Allen Estate has agreed to sell the team to a group led by the Kolsa family for $9.612 billion. That's billion with a B, a number that would crush the previous record for an NFL franchise. Kolsa is expected to become the first minority woman to ever have sole control of an NFL team, making this a historic ownership change both financially and culturally. Paul Allen's nearly 30-year run transformed Seattle into one of the NFL's strongest organizations, and now the question is whether the new ownership group can continue that winning tradition. NFL isn't just America's most popular sport. It's becoming one of the most valuable businesses in the world as the Seahawks sell for almost $10 billion, $9.6 billion. This is the definition of selling one on top, like selling high. Yep. It's exactly what the Seahawks do after winning a Super Bowl, but obviously a big sale for the franchise. And, whether or not they win, I think is different because of the fact that this is not like baseball where spending money is going to lead to a championship. There are rules in place, but it really sets the legacy, or really sets the precedent of who is going to be able to buy sports teams in the future, at least in a solo sense. Or are we going to have a group setting now for most ownership of sports teams because the price tag has gotten so high?
Yeah, it's the future has turned into a conglomerate. You're not going to be able to, as a single person, unless you really are rich, one, and two, insane, you're not going to be able to afford to buy one of these teams on your own anymore. The price has just gone absolutely insane. To me, it's also interesting, the wrinkle that she was a former San Francisco 49er owner as well, a minority owner in the Niners. Now she's being forced to sell those shares in order to be able to do this. But, to buy another team in the division, that's quite interesting as well.
That is interesting, but it's almost to the point of like you want to be able to
Yeah.
afford your own team. And you know what? It's like buying and selling stock, right? I mean, that's what you're doing. You're buying and selling shares of the franchise. And, whatever her shares were initially to buy the Niners have probably gone up themselves in terms of the valuation of the franchise when she sold those and then put them into the Seahawks. And why wouldn't you do that if you had the ability and you had other means of a financial avenue to be a minority owner and turn yourself into a majority owner? I think that's what a lot of minority owners probably would like to do if they like to call the shots and want to run things a certain way. If they just want to collect the check of being an owner and having the fun, there's still a lot of perks without taking as much of a risk. She obviously wants the extra risk. Seahawks finally sell again close to $10 billion. But I mean, you look at the stages of this, of the NFL franchise values. Broncos sold for $4.65 billion. The Commanders sold for $6 billion, and now the Seahawks getting close to $10 billion. I mean, how high can NFL franchises values go? If the Jones family didn't want to own the Cowboys, I mean, that is probably a pretty penny to try to buy the Dallas Cowboys in this day and age.
It's about 10 to 15 billion, I would have to assume, based off of what the Seahawks are
right.
going. So yeah, it is amazing. And especially with the value just of the NFL as a whole, that is only going to make these teams more and more expensive to buy as well.
I look at this and from a standpoint of being able to buy franchises. I just think it's probably going to be more. There's two things that can happen. One, it's going to be group effort, or two, you're just going to have the Steve Cohens of the world, or there's somebody that just is super into wanting to be an owner of a professional franchise. And I mean, there's going to be franchises going to be a lot easier to buy in sports. The NFL is going to be the hardest thing in the United States to buy if you're an owner. But I think that leads to there's not going to be these, and we talked about this before the Padres sale went through. There's not a lot of owners anymore that are mom and pop shop owners, if you will, where that is their sole income and they cut corner or they do everything they need to do to try to, make that as profitable as possible, because if they don't make any money. That's the type of owner you want, the one that this is just kind of a toy. And so for Seattle, we'll see what happens with this. I don't think anything really changes though when it comes to the organizations, the NFL. Like when you have, at least in this day and age, I mean, with the salary cap and everything like that, unless you're getting a Spanos family to buy, which they would never be able to afford teams like this in this day and age. I mean, ownership groups aren't changing anything that crazy when it comes to money, because everything's relatively the same with the salary cap. If they decide to call the shots and they're not good football people, then yeah, that could have a catastrophic effect on how teams are run. I think you see that more with families that run teams that have had them for generations, though, more so than new ownership groups. New ownership groups usually lead to more success. I think you're starting to see that with Washington a little bit. I know they had a setback last year, but things seem to be trending in the right direction. The Broncos, of course, have been good over the last handful of years. I don't think anything really changes. 12:24 on a Thursday. I quickly grabbed my headphones. I tried to put them on right there because we're coming back from break. They went off the microphone and smacked me in the nose. Ridiculous.
It's like me.
Ridiculous. See? You smashed your knee into the thing.
You laughed at me.
No, I didn't. I said, that happens. I felt bad because that does happen.
Yeah, I smashed my knee on the desk, right on the corner of it too.
The my bed that I bought not too long ago for my new place, it has claimed the lives of about 4 different shins. Showing up, he's like, oh, let's see you move in, stuff like that. My dad, bang, right in the edge of it because it kicks out. I've done it 14,000 times. I have not done it in probably a month now because I understand where it is, but it has claimed a lot of victims. Wham!
Hazard pay?
No.
Hazard pay?
You don't get hazard pay for that.
No, I mean here.
No, that's what I'm saying. You don't get hazard pay for that. You see, this is a problem with you potentially getting hazard pay. Here's the issue.
I'm not going to knock my knee on the desk on purpose.
Here's the problem. You have already claimed and have called you have done this yourself. You've called yourself a dope enough. They're just going to be like, well, you're just being a dope. That's on you. That's on you saying that from the get-go. You weren't the self-deprecation doesn't work out with hazard pay.
Something tells me the state of California would not allow a non-payment of hazard pay because said guy calls himself an idiot more times than not.
I think so.
I don't think that's a thing.
It is a thing.
You call yourself an idiot, so you're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
So therefore, I'm not going to pay you. No, I don't think it works that way.
It does. In the state of California, it definitely does. Especially if they have to pay for it. That's definitely in the clause.
There's hazard pay to work on an offshore oil rig. You have to be an idiot to do that job. So I don't think
they would be skillful. They're skillful though.
They're skillful idiots. Yes, you're very correct about that.
But you know what they don't do? They don't call themselves idiots. You make the mistake of calling yourself a dope.
If you're working on an offshore oil rig, I can't believe you're comparing.
I can't believe you're comparing yourself working in a climate-controlled studio with a guy in an offshore oil rig. That's disrespectful.
It's called privilege.
It's disrespectful.
I know.
You're trying to relate to a lot of the hardworking people out there when we talk about the labor negotiations. I don't think people are going to listen to you now.
That's what happens when you run for office, You just kind of...
Run for office of what? The PR department of the Pac-12?
My mother was a small business.
Tell us about yesterday as part of our World Cup day. We talked about the World Cup a little bit with Jamie Watson, but we do need to get to our World Cup report, which is brought to you by Harris SoCal. Catch the final this Sunday, July 19th at the First Down Sports Bar, or join our massive ticketed event at the event center. Don't just watch history, be part of it in Funner, California. One of our last World Cup dates of the World Cup.
Only one game, and do we say it again? It happened again. It happened again. Choked in the World Cup. It happened again. England, on the back of Anthony Jones, puts a goal in the 55th minute. It was looking oh so good, right up until the point where it wasn't. Enzo Fernandez, a half hour later in the 85th, ties it for Argentina. And then Lautaro Martinez on a beautiful header in the 90th minute +2 sends Argentina to its second consecutive World Cup final. Saturday will be the third place game. France versus England. A game between two of the best friends that anyone can have in a game where there's a lot of hurt feelings. And then on Sunday will be the World Cup final, Spain versus Argentina. France, England on Saturday will be at 2 p.m. on Fox. Spain, Argentina will be at noon on Fox.
Is your invite to England getting rescinded?
Not unless anyone over there hears it.
I mean, you keep making fun of England. I'm just saying. You're poking the bear.
Okay.
I agree with Go Aztecs in the YouTube chat.
It stinks.
I will
be going to England at some point during the baseball offseason.
Have you picked dates for that yet?
I have not yet. No, I'm aiming for like November before Thanksgiving, so this way we're out of the baseball season and
isn't that
like
the
not
entire
in
month
the holidays.
Of November? Isn't that the entire month of November?
What?
Isn't any part of November before Thanksgiving? Isn't most of November before Thanksgiving? There's multiple weeks that are before. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to do sometime in November before Thanksgiving, after the baseball season ends. So this way I'm set through the World Series if by the grace of God the Padres do make it through. And then
that's funny.
And then I have the whole winter, to freeze here instead of freeze overseas.
You might as well just wait for the lockout. Impending. Maybe.
I'm trying to think of the easiest times to be able to take off, dude. Come on.
I mean, at this rate, it's looking like October.
Listen,
you could probably clear it at that point.
Listen, I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk it.
You could guarantee a Padres playoff appearance by, you know what you should do? You should book it for the end of October during the World Series, to make sure the Padres
just
make
so they
the World
make
Series.
it, and I have to cancel my trip. Yes,
correct. I think that would be doing. You know what? That's taking one for the team right there. That's helping out the ball club. Could you imagine? First of all, I don't think that would happen. But could you imagine if it did, all of a sudden the Mets resurrect? Frank books a trip to London. Mets just second half insane comeback.
Going to London and Oxford. And try to get out to a Chelsea match. Because I mean, if the time frame that I want to go, if I remember correctly, I think they're playing on November 24th at Stamford Bridge.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get out to that one, if anything. It would be a couple days before I come back.
Just saying, man, you can help the ball club out a little bit.
I could, I really could.
You know that always happens.
That's October.
That's what I'm saying. What's in October? The game?
Yeah, that game I thought. That's October 24th, not November 24th.
Interesting.
November 21st. They're playing Leeds, which
World Series dates. Oh, Friday, October 23rd. Help the ball club out, Frank.
See, now if I did the October trip, I'd be missing the division in the NLCS. I'd be back in time for the World Series.
When would you go for that?
Yeah, I would say like the middle of the month. So
you wouldn't go to the end of the month? When does that soccer game? I thought you said it was October 24th.
Yeah, I would go like October 14th to the 28th, maybe.
That would be
October
like
13th
all
to
of
the 28th.
Playoffs. That'd be the entire playoffs.
I would like to go for 2 weeks. That's kind of where I'm going for that.
Well, yeah, you can't do European trips without going for at least. Otherwise, it doesn't do it justice.
And you also got to go. You got to go and come back in the middle of the week too, because that's when the flights are the cheapest.
Yeah, flying the weekend's not great. Hey, you know what? Could help the team out. I mean, Adam would probably get mad at you, but
I know that's why I was thinking November.
At this rate, they're not making it that far in October, and if they do, we can all put. You know what? If you were to do that, the Padres were to win the World Series, you would have to be in the parade, I think. Make Frank the Grand Marshal of the World Series parade.
Odyssey sponsored trip to the UK every October.
Wow.
If that works.
We got breaking news.
Uh-oh.
We got breaking news.
Hold on.
Padres breaking news.
This is breaking news from 97.3 The Fan.
Cool. Let's go to break. We'll get at the other end.
What?
Yep. Enjoy this commercial break.
For God's sake.
Go to break. We'll get on the other end. Padres breaking news. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. We did, in fact, have breaking news from the Padres. They have announced.
This is breaking news from 97.3 The Fan.
See, we're not in trade deadline season yet, so it's not a trade. Padres have announced their 2027 schedule as of 3 or 4 minutes ago. Got the notification for it. We were at the time to break. So we broke. And now you have the 2027 schedule that could not ever possibly be changed before next year with the impending labor negotiations, right, Frank?
And broke everyone mentally, too.
I know. You know what? Seeing if they're still on their toes during the All-Star break.
I think they're checked out now.
I'll take the foul. It's fine.
No kidding. You're getting a tech, bro. Like, what do you mean?
You know what, though? When I said that, I was going to tease it, and then you fired off the breaking news sounder, making it sound like it was like a huge deal.
Well, I was ready on it. I was ready on it. Got you. Padres got their season schedule. The most interesting thing that caught my eye originally, and again, we're going to go, this becomes moot in the offseason if they're still in labor negotiations. Padres, they brought back the scheduled doubleheaders next year. They got a scheduled doubleheader against the Cubs here in June, and they got a scheduled doubleheader against the Rockies in July. The June one's interesting. You want to know why the June one's interesting? What? Yeah.
They go, and it's not even amount of games played in a row. But listen to this. They got the New York Mets on the road June 15th, 16th, and 17th. I don't know if you want to put the graphic up on screen just so we can see it. They got the Mets 15th, 16th, and 17th in New York. They don't have an off day when they fly back. They're going to fly back to San Diego. They play the Pirates for the weekend series. And then they got a game against the Cubs on Monday, June 21st. And another game against the Cubs. Then a doubleheader against the Cubs on June 22nd. Then they have Wednesday, Thursday off of that week. They have 2 off days in a row in June.
It's just so odd.
It's so random.
My first thought was, what are they trying to make space for? Because usually, I mean, I know there's, you get those times where you have double headers and that just happens. But usually when you schedule double headers, you're trying to make space for something like an extended All-Star game weekend, All-Star weekend or something like that. But it looks like it's just, the one in July seems normal going into the All-Star break because it's the Rockies on Friday, a doubleheader on Saturday, and then on Sunday is the series finale, and then you go into the All-Star break. But yeah, that one in June is very interesting.
Well, then they have one again in July against the Rockies. So they're going to have a doubleheader. They're going to have 2 doubleheaders in a 3-week span.
That's so odd.
Does anybody else have those? I mean, the Rockies have the 1 doubleheader. We have 2 doubleheaders. And I don't know why. I'm sure they'll have some information on that when they do a full press release. I'd also find this interesting, too. This will be the earliest scheduled opening day for Major League Baseball in the United States. Obviously, a couple years ago, Padres opened up in Japan or something like that on March 20th, or Korea. Forget which one it was. Padres opening day scheduled for March 25th. I guess the first game of the season will be March 24th for whoever it was, ESPN said. They're not really giving themselves too much time on the labor negotiations now, are they?
No, especially with that means that spring training has to open sooner.
Right. Because the games are going to be earlier. So. And then they have all of these extra days in there. I wonder if they have these scheduled doubleheaders and stuff to try to get games in just in case.
That might be the case.
I mean, if you look at the Padres first, their schedule, and they have a 7-game homestand day off. They have 4 days off in April. They have 3 days off in May. 5 days off in June. July, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 games off in July. And then they have 4 games off in August, 4 days off in August, sorry. And then September, they have 3 days off.
It's 3 days off a month, really.
I just, the doubleheader against the Cubs is interesting, unless the Cubs have like some weird deal.
Let me see.
Moving forward. But yeah, they have the doubleheader against the Cubs, and then they have 2 days off in a row. Has there ever been a situation in which the Padres have had, in the last 10 years, 2 days off in a row that wasn't the beginning of the season or the All-Star break?
The Cubs have not thrown up their schedule yet. Oh, well, no, they have. Never mind. God, just put the list of the schedule up in a calendar. Don't make it like the. Oh my God.
We complain about the Cubs' schedule announcement.
They just did it in such a stupid way. It's like they put it up as a Ticketmaster thing. Yep, I'm going to this one. I'm going to this one. It's like, really? Just show a calendar. They're after the doubleheader, so they're playing they're off on the 17th. The Mets are the Padres are going to be coming back from New York against the Mets. Okay. Then the Cubs play the Rockies on the 18th, 19th, and 20th in Colorado. They have the Padres on the 21st and 22nd with the doubleheader on the 22nd. Wednesday, the 23rd off, and then 4 in San Francisco. So they're effectively that gives the Cubs a day off before going up north to play San Francisco instead of having 10 games in a row.
Yeah, but I think there's like an amount of days in a row that you can't play. It's more than 10. Or because that happened. Remember they have the Padres a couple years ago.
They have the previous 2 Thursdays off though.
Are you talking about the Cubs?
Yeah. They have the 10th and the 17th off.
I remember, was it 2 years ago when Detroit came here? Remember, it was like they had a game and then they had the Tuesday off.
Yeah.
And then they had the next 2 games because the Padres had played too many games in a row. And so what they did was they still wanted them to play on Labor Day, but then they gave them the day off of Labor Day. Was that last year? I think it was last year. Or 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago because it was here, I think, at home against the Tigers. I remember that being a thing. But yeah, the two doubleheaders, scheduled doubleheaders, is very interesting for the Padres. And I was looking at other schedules. I don't really see a lot of them being scheduled doubleheaders. So I'm curious why the Padres went with that. Especially the Cubs one, like the Rockies one. It's like, all right, well, we got to find extra games against the Rockies, right? So you're going to need a 4-game homestand, maybe here or there, and maybe that was the way to cram it in for the Padres instead of playing every day and having to play the Mariners Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Rockies Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday into the All-Star break. Maybe they decided to do that. But it's very interesting in terms of like a lot of home matchups that are fun. I mean, obviously, about the National League, but American League home matchups. Baltimore comes to town end of April, beginning of May. Kansas City comes to town second week of May. The Red Sox will be here, I think, Memorial Day weekend.
May 28th through 30th. So, yeah, I believe so.
I think that's the case. The Padres will be in Los Oklahomento May 31st through the 2nd. I kind of want to go to that. Just because, like, it'd be kind of cool to watch them in that minor league stadium once.
Show road trip?
Sure. Again, this is all subject to change.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's in the middle of the week. We're going to have to do a little bit more finagling for that.
Well, I mean, like, I think that's Memorial Day, the 31st, maybe. Or maybe the Memorial Day is the week prior. I don't know. Other American League teams coming to town. Tampa Bay will be here on the 4th of July. Then they got the Mariners right after the All-Star game and the Angels here at home. And then in August, the Guardians come to town in terms of American League opponents. And then the Rangers come here as the last home series of 2027 will be the Texas Rangers. And then for some reason, I don't know what has gotten into Major League Baseball or whoever makes the schedule, but they just love the tradition of the Padres playing the White Sox the last weekend of the series, the last series of the year. They'll be in Chicago last series of the year against the White Sox.
It's really interesting how that keeps happening, isn't it?
This is like the first time it hasn't been like that in a long time. I mean, it's like been almost every year the White Sox have been, in town. So I don't know, man. I don't know why they would have this like this. NASCAR involved, maybe? In June, or did they want to do that during the 4th of July?
They were aiming for the 4th of July,
which we host.
Which would be against Tampa here, but I don't see any reason why Major League Baseball would conform to NASCAR scheduling. Like, you get it for Major League Baseball and the NFL.
Well,
I get it for that in the NBA.
But here's what they do. Here's what they do. The Major League Baseball teams have their requests that they put in. So the Padres for so many years have put in a request to give up home games at the end of July for Comic-Con, and you get rewarded for that because what 3 months does everybody want for baseball home series?
June, July, and August.
Yeah, June, July, and August, right? Because kids are out of school. It might be maybe more late May now with schedules, but like everybody wants home games in June, July, and August, and not everybody can have home games. And so if you sacrifice some games in those months, you get to open up the season at home. Maybe you get opening day, or you get to have to finish the season at home, or maybe you get to have the 4th of July because everybody wants to host the 4th of July weekend. So there's a lot of those deals that get made with Major League Baseball with your schedule, and a lot of it too is like, okay, we have this coming to town in San Diego. We don't want to compete with this. It's in July. We'll give this up, but we get to have opening day. So it's not like Major League Baseball just sets their schedule and goes, everybody else cater to us. There's a lot of trades that go on when it comes to scheduling, where the Padres could be like, hey, we don't mind having this weekend off because Comic-Con's here. But in order for us to give up some July home games, we want to be able to be at home to start the season every year, something like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the equation.
Why am I looking at this like it matters?
Yeah, who knows if it's going to change? I think it's interesting though on the double headers.
I'm looking at the Mets schedule. I'm like, why am I looking at this like it matters?
Frank's starting to put through like the I think they can go like 14 and whatever in June. Is that what you're doing?
They end the season against the Pirates and Cubs. They don't play the Cubs until the Cubs until the last 2 weekends of the season.
That's the other thing too. Like in previous years, the Padres had like not played the division for a long time. If you look at the Padres schedule next year, assuming it stays, Arizona, Colorado, and the Dodgers are in 3 of the first 6 series, with a trip to Pittsburgh and St. Louis in the middle of it. And honestly, going to Pittsburgh and St. Louis in April is a lot better than seeing them in the middle of the season in terms of like how hot it is. You're going to be done with the Cardinals after April 15th. You got 7 games against the Cardinals in a just over a week span. And they got Arizona again. I mean, you're going to be halfway done playing Arizona after the 3rd week of April. And then you don't play Arizona again until August, it looks like. Yeah. How about that? You're going to play Arizona the first 4 games of the year. You're going to play them again on the road 3 days in April, and then you're going to have 3 months before you see Arizona again for 3 games in August, and then the second to last series of the year. I do agree with the Corey in the YouTube chat. They need to bring back that old married couple that used to do all the MLB games.
Yeah, no
The schedules
kidding.
were a lot better when they were doing it, it seemed like. But
Have them cryogenically frozen and bring them back as needed.
I do not know if that is necessary. I think they could still be around.
They may not be in the next 150 years.
No, you're trying to do. They have to permanently. You know what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to stay alive for a long period of time because we need you to do the baseball schedule.
Listen, we don't see Major League Baseball ending as an organization anytime soon. So if you guys could just, I don't know, live for the next 200 years, that'd be Sweet.
Everybody is posting their schedule. We're the only ones that have the scheduled doubleheaders. And the only other ones that have scheduled doubleheaders are playing us in the scheduled doubleheaders.
Which is very...
And one of them's on the road, too. It's not like they're both at home.
That's got to be that's a very interesting quirk.
It is. Very interesting. So, I don't mind the schedule. This will be a schedule that we like based on the opponents in different spots because this will be the schedule that we miss. Or maybe start late on. When we come back, second half storylines for the San Diego Padres. We'll dive into that when we continue on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. We're talking about the 2027 schedule release. Looks pretty cool if they play it. We have no idea if they're going to do that or not. Not with the maybe impending lockout, not with the labor negotiations going on.
Just think, MLB The Show will be like, MLB The Show 27 will be like NHL 05. Let's get a schedule that never happened.
Maybe they play these scheduled doubleheaders. Maybe they don't. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. Setting us over at Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Let's talk a little bit about the second half of the season and what the big storylines are for the Padres going into the second half of the season, which is going to lead to, obviously, a deadline dilemma for the Padres. But the organization, as mentioned by Dennis Lin, who wrote an article about this, is a little bit out of a crossroads because they enter the second half at 48-48. It's one of the most disappointing teams in baseball relative to expectations. And less than 2 months ago, they were leading the National League West despite an injury-ravaged rotation and an offense that hadn't gotten going. Since then, they've gone 30-49, falling out of serious playoff contention and positioning, more positioning than contention, and forcing A.J. Preller into perhaps his toughest trade deadline decision since taking over baseball operations. So organization now faces a difficult balancing act, push for one more postseason run despite long odds, or begin selling assets to improve the future, or attempt another risky buy and sell hybrid approach. I mean, they were first place in the National League West for a small amount of time. They were winning despite their offensive struggles. They were doing it without Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove, and there was belief that internal improvement would eventually arrive, but they never really got that. They've lost 30 out of their last 49 games. Actually, they're 30. No, they're 30-49 in their last, 79 games, if you will. The offense ranks near the bottom of Major League Baseball as they're 48-48. Rotation is completely fallen apart. And newly acquired Mason Miller from a year ago doesn't get a lot of save opportunities because the team isn't really leading a lot. So the issue everyone expected to eventually fix themselves largely never did. I still think they're starting to trend in a better direction, but as we've talked about on the show multiple times, Frank, it's not turning around fast enough for the Padres to get back on track without putting themselves in a position where they have to go on a very incredible run. Right now, they still don't have to do anything too remarkable. They got to go 38-28 in their last 66 games. That is very doable, but the longer that they kick the can down the road, the harder it's going to be. I mean, Ben asked the question, what do you think the Padres are going to do out of the gate in the second half? And I said, take 2 out of 3 from Kansas City, split with Atlanta, and lose 2 out of 3 to Miami. Do you know what that does? That puts you at 500,
yeah.
Which is exactly where we are right now, going into the trade deadline. And quite frankly, that makes it even more difficult later on in the second half because now you have a smaller number of games to try to win 10 more than you lose. 38-28 is very doable. If you have to do that after the first stretch of games to start the second half, it's going to become harder and harder to deal with, and that's why they really need to get off to a really fast start in the second half.
Yeah, you need to be able to. You have to take 2 out of 3 against
or more
against Kansas City. That has to be done. I would say, based off of the Padres' track record against the Braves, that 3 out of 4 in Atlanta isn't off the table. It'll be harder to do than doing it here, but I don't think it's off the table. Miami, and that'll set you up to where you can kind of go 1-2 against Miami. It'd be great if you caught them like kind of in an awkward spot in their starting rotation, coming off of a long stretch like that to kind of catch them napping a little bit. That would be cool. Maybe steal an extra game there. But I don't see with anything that this team has done. I think it's going to be 2 out of 3 split 1 out of 3.
Yeah, it'd be 5-5 in the 10 games, which means at that point you would have to go 33-23 the rest of the way, which is, again, it's not impossible. It's very doable for a team. That's a good stretch. They need to go on a good stretch. But when you start thinking about where they're going to be after that series, I mean, they're going to have a couple of more games left in July, and they'll have 2 months to try to do that. And I know the schedule eases up for the Padres, but it just keeps kicking the can down the road like they did with some of these decisions on the roster. They would have to start doing now with individual games. Now, here's the thing about the Marlins and why. I mean, the Marlins had just got swept by Cleveland going into the All-Star break, and they start the second half with Milwaukee and Houston. Now, Houston is still relatively around. That's not as difficult of a series as it probably was last year, but they start on the road for 6 games at Milwaukee and at Houston. I mean, the Marlins could be reeling by the time the Padres play them on July 24th. In Miami. So that changes some things. The other thing, too, that you mentioned, and I do want to push back a little bit. I know the Padres have had Atlanta's number, and I know Atlanta hasn't been playing as great of baseball as of late, and they're 5-5 in their last 10. And with the Padres track record, like 4 games in Atlanta, it's not crazy to see that they would, they could take 3 out of 4. I don't think they need to. It would be nice to. But, I mean, you look at this weekend's pitching. Did you see we talked about it yesterday. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the probable starters this weekend for the Padres?
No, I do not off the top of my head. No.
It's Michael King. It's Griffin Canning. It's Herman Marquez. Who's pitching in Atlanta? I mean, after you get through that weekend against the
Vasquez, Buehler, King. Vasquez, Buehler, King, Canning would be the rotation.
Still, that's what about Sears? Sears is still up on the big league club, isn't he? They haven't sent him back down, have they?
Not that I can think.
They have Johnny Brito up right now because Wandy Peralta has been placed on the bereavement list. I mean, I know who's pitching, but like out of that group, what makes you think that they're going to outdo Atlanta for 4 days? 3 out of 4 days. I mean, you're probably going to get one with Michael King, but I mean, they need their rotation to step up in a huge way, and it really starts with Griffin Canning on Saturday. And Herman Marquez has been very serviceable. He needs to be serviceable on Sunday against Kansas City. But Kansas City is the worst team in baseball right now. They're tied with the Halos, the worst team in baseball. I mean, you got to be thinking 2 out of 3 are sweep against KC. And then I think asking for a split in Atlanta is fair. I mean, if they win 1 game in Atlanta, at least they win the season series against Atlanta. The Padres could be doing themselves a favor by taking 3 out of 4 from Atlanta, because hopefully the Phillies catch the Braves, and then Atlanta's who you're competing with for a wild card spot, and they're a team that you would then massively have a tiebreaker against before you take on Miami.
And Philadelphia has got a rough test ahead of them starting tonight to start that chase against Atlanta.
That's right.
It's a tough task ahead.
They got this team from Double-A Flushing Meadows. Or did they get promoted to Triple-A?
I think they're in High A at this point.
High A Flushing Meadows.
Yeah, they're gonna bring the Cyclones out.
Oh
this
man.
week.
Oh man. But after the road trip, if they honestly, if they survive the road trip at 500, which I don't necessarily think is going to be the greatest, they get the Rockies and the Giants. Might be able to put it back on track. I mean, at this rate, 4 games in Arizona, you're thinking split because you've split with them everywhere you've been. And then you got Houston and Milwaukee. And then you got Cleveland. I mean, that's the toughest stretch of the remainder of the year. Houston, Milwaukee, Cleveland. Then you got the Mets, the Twins, the Pirates. You got the Rays for 3 who are going to be tough on the road. And then it's Cincinnati. I mean, who knows what the Nationals are going to look like come September 7th. There's rumors about them potentially trading, or like teams that want to trade for James Wood and CJ Abrams. Could you imagine if the Nationals did that? I don't know why you would, but I mean, could you imagine? Would that negate all of the conversations about the Padres and the Nationals? Then you got Giants, you got Rockies, you got Marlins again. Padres have a very favorable schedule in the second half, but it starts with trying to get off to a nice start in Kansas City. And the fact that you get to play 2 of the worst teams in Major League Baseball in the second half, you have to be thinking at minimum 2 out of 3, and that's where you steal a sweep. And I know you can't rely on a sweep, but you got to try to steal one from the Mets, from the Royals. And the bad news is you already lost 2 out of 3 in New York at home. So you got to do it on the road. Who knows what the Mets will be like by the time you play them. Kansas City, you can't get off to a hot start to the second half of the season. But, I mean, it's going to be a tough spot. So AJ Preller, with all that information, faces his biggest deadline decision yet. His option number 1 is the buy to realistically compete. San Diego, if you want to make this a World Series caliber team via the trade deadline, which is going to be almost impossible, but let's just humor everybody in saying that. What's the bare minimum you need?
2 starting pitchers and a left fielder.
Yeah. Or maybe, I don't think 1 starting pitcher is going to be enough, but you're going to need a starting pitcher. You're going to need at least 1 corner outfielder that has a bat that's swinging well.
Yeah, 2 starting pitchers
and
and a
you
left
could
fielder.
probably use some bullpen help. You always need bullpen help. And if you're going to think about buying and selling, then you definitely are going to need bullpen help. The problem is farm system obviously is extremely thin. I mean, we've had conversations with, Brian Yanselson and Tim Haggerty and AA and AAA respectively. And there are players that are outplaying not being in the top 30 for prospects in the Padres organization, which is now ranked 27th in baseball after the draft. Thanks. Moving on up. But it's still not going to be enough maybe to buy what you need. And plus the market is very much a seller's market. So buying enough to actually move the needle may simply not be possible. I'm in the belief of making the playoffs, see what happen over let's not try to make the playoffs and think about 2028, 2029. I think that's a loser mentality. I really do. I think that's not being bold. I think that's not taking a chance. I think that's not being a winner. I think that's we're afraid. Let's just try to save as much as possible and think about that. I hate that attitude. If you have a chance to make the playoffs, you should be trying to make the playoffs, in my opinion, especially in baseball, in a sport where you never know what can happen. It's different in football. It's different in basketball and other sports. Baseball is such a weird sport that you could be an average, mediocre team that makes the playoffs and go on a run. We've seen it happen time and time again. Making the playoffs is the biggest obstacle. But that was option number 1. Option number 2, Fangraphs gives the Padres roughly a 12% chance of making the postseason. They gave them about a 30% chance to make the postseason in 2024 at this time of the year. They obviously overcame that, and a lot of people thought they could potentially win the World Series. In fact, the Dodgers, who won it that year, said that was the best team that they faced the entire season. Take that for what it's worth. Fangraphs is what it is. So selling would make baseball sense, but the problem is, there's not many valuable trade chips. They're going to bring you better prospects back than what you currently have of Adrian Morejon, Michael King, Mason Miller. I mean, moving Miller is going to be incredibly difficult because he's one of baseball's elite closers and under control. And if you want to get any type of value close to that, I don't think there's a market for him. There's not a market for him that makes sense where what you're going to get back is going to help you over the next 3 or 4 years more than what Mason Miller is going to do. It's not. Option number 3, thread the needle. It feels like more of what AJ Preller is possibly going to need to do. I mean, you can trade some expiring contracts like Morejon, like a Michael King, acquire some controllable players. So you're thinking about now and the future. So you're kind of buying while simultaneously selling. I think that's where they're at right now. But Adrian Morejon would probably be your most valuable piece in that situation, as he could be someone who could bring back talent while helping other weaknesses. I think that's probably their best approach. So that one's interesting to me. 2023 is a little bit of a warning sign. Again, like 2 years ago, instead of selling, Preller added Scott Barlow, added Garrett Cooper, added Rich Hill, added G-Man Choi. It didn't really do anything. The Padres still missed the playoffs. They had to trade Juan Soto in the winter anyway. And so the small deadline additions don't fix a lot of deeply flawed teams. I thought that team was a little bit different, though. I mean, they had... I thought they were massively underachieving even more than this team was. The 2023 team, Frank?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a slightly different situation than this year. But again, like adding guys like Scott Barlow and Garrett Cooper and Rich Hill and G-Man Choi, that's not going to do anything.
No, that's just straight up just doing something at this point. That's not really like a big help. And I don't think that there's really anything that the Padres can do at this point to really build that team that is one piece away. A lot of what they need to do is going to have to be done during the off season, which we know how unique that is going to be this year. So I have a feeling Preller is going to do something just to be able to try to get over the hump, get to the dance floor, and then let what happened there happens. But I don't see a way that this team can fix itself at the deadline to be able to really consider themselves a 2024-esque threat.
I will say this, if you lost a lot on that trade deadline for those pieces, it would be even worse. I mean, do you remember what the Padres gave up for G-Man Choi and Rich Hill?
No.
Estuar Suero, who's still in the minor leagues, Alfonso Rivas, and Jackson Wolf. What team does Jackson Wolf play for now?
Padres.
The El Paso Chihuahuas. So, the guy in the group that was probably, in my opinion, the one that, seemed the best because he looked pretty good in, the start that he had was Jackson Wolf. He's back on your team. I'd have to go look up, what they did for, who was it? Garrett Cooper was one of them, right? I mean, I thought he was a decent pickup for the Padres at that, but he only played one more year after that. Before he eventually is just not on a team anymore. But if you go to, I'm going to go look up what you traded for Gary. The Padres traded, you know what? They traded Ryan Weathers for Garrett Cooper and Sean Reynolds. That's not that great of a trade right now. But at that point, again, how many fans were tired of Ryan Weathers? But at this point, too, Ryan Weathers got, a 4-something ERA with the Yankees? I mean, he even lasted in Miami. And the last trade was Scott Barlow. That was that wasn't very good either. He was okay. But I don't mind the GM that's trying to make the playoffs. I really don't. I'd rather have a GM that tries to do that than a GM that just continues to punt every year. Scott Barlow was traded for Scott Barlow was traded for Henry Williams and Jesus Rios. Do you know who those guys are?
Two guys who've never been in my kitchen.
That is correct. And then he got traded to Cleveland for Enyel De Los Santos, who the Padres then traded for Brandon Lockridge. And then who did they trade Brandon Lockridge for? He was with Milwaukee, wasn't he? Is that who they traded him with?
I think, didn't we just go over that? Wasn't it?
I forgot already.
Yeah, I think we just went over it with the story that.
Nestor Cortez and Jorge Quintana.
There you go.
Jorge Quintana is supposed to be a really highly level prospect. I mean, so you technically traded. Yeah, you traded two minor league prospects we've never heard of, and turned them into Jorge Quintana and Nestor Cortez last year on the trade train. It's funny how those work out, right? Two guys you never heard of before got traded for Scott Barlow. Scott Barlow got flipped for Enyel De Los Santos. Enyel De Los Santos got flipped for Brandon Lockridge, who then in return got flipped for Jorge Quintana, who was one of your better prospects now in the organization, and for Nestor Cortez, who you thought you could get a little bit out of last year. The trade deadline is going to be fascinating, and I think the Padres have to try to. It would be better for us if the Padres played their way into one side or the other, so we're not in this weird purgatory. We'll talk more about this when we come back because we got to take a break. Padres conversation here on the Braden Surprenant Show, standing us over at Sports Station 97 through the Fan.
Transform your home with custom interior shutters from Shuttermark, manufactured and installed.
Ryan Blaney won one of NASCAR's wildest races of the season after the checkered flag flew at nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. Following a 3-hour rain delay in Atlanta, Blaney survived overtime and made a last corner pass to beat Carson Hocevar in a thrilling 3-wide finish. Bubba Wallace crossed the line second, but was penalized for driving below the double yellow, dropping all the way to 29th. Meanwhile, Justin Allgaier claimed his 6th O'Reilly Auto Parts Series win of the year to lock up the regular season championship. And Grant Effinger finally earned his first Truck Series road course victory at Lime Rock Park. Late night racing, overtime drama, controversy, and championship shakeups. Motorsports delivered another unforgettable weekend. But we start with Ryan Blaney, who won all 3 stages. His car was really dominant. He did get hit a little bit, like in the final stage, where he thought, oh, maybe it might lose a little bit of speed on the car. But he ended up dominating the entire race. He led 171 laps. And locked in a pretty impressive victory, especially with the way last night's race finished.
No, it was a fantastic race. And Atlanta has changed quite a bit from what it was a couple of years ago, where it was just purely drafting. It was 3 wide constantly. You couldn't really move. Now the track is starting to show a little bit of age. They've also upped the horsepower on these cars. If I'm NASCAR, I'm looking at that race last night and I'm saying I am never changing the aero package for this racetrack. It was fantastic. It was that perfect mix of drafting, slingshotting, timing your run the way Daytona and Talladega used to be back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. But you also had that Atlanta fall off that guys like me miss because the track is starting to age. It was an unbelievable race from start to finish. Action everywhere. The rain delay kind of dampened it a little bit, no pun intended. But when the race restarted back up with more than half fit to go at the end, it was nothing but incredible racing from there on out.
30 lead changes, 7 cautions, 3-hour rain delay, finished after 1:45 in the morning. I mean, Ryan Blaney took a nap in between. Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the broadcast was like, I would have crushed 6 Red Bulls. I probably would have taken a nap. I think that probably does a little bit better for the athlete than just continuing to crush Red Bulls. But Toyota continues to dominate the Cup Series. I mean, 1 week earlier at Chicagoland, it was Chase Briscoe that gave Joe Gibbs Racing another victory. I mean, Ty Gibbs was leading a lot of the race, the laps there late in Atlanta yesterday as well. But Toyota continues to separate themselves from Chevy and Ford. And I know Blaney drives a Ford, but I mean, it's been tough for both Ford and Chevy. Toyota's got their model down for their race car right now, and it's across the board with Joe Gibbs Racing and 2311. I mean, the Toyota cars are doing extremely well.
Yeah, Christopher Bell, I don't know if you heard the story on the broadcast or not, but Christopher Bell, they had to recast his wrist. So what they did was, instead of just taping up his hand and recasting it, he actually had him recast it around the wheel. So like he had his hand on the wheel and then recasted it that way, which is just absolutely insane. This Toyota dominance comes off the heels of some comments made by Brad Keselowski, who's one of the Ford owners, said that Ford and Chevrolet both have their babies. They have their teams. Chevrolet has Hendrick, of course. Ford has Penske, who ended up winning this race. Toyota and TRD and Toyota Racing Development don't do that. They treat all of their teams equally, and that's why you see Gibbs, 2311, and Legacy all performing very, very well, performing equally, are constantly up in the fight inside the top 10 and top 15. Chevrolet doesn't do that. And right now, Spire has been the best Chevrolet team so far this season, even though Hendrick is the one that's getting all of the Chevrolet stuff first and should theoretically be up there. So what Toyota, this business model for Toyota, give everyone equal opportunity, give everyone equal stuff, and then allow the teams to work the way they do, that has really paid off in spades for Toyota this season.
Let's talk about SVG and Austin Hill becoming NASCAR's new rivalry. One storyline everyone will be watching: Shane Van Gisbergen and Austin Hill. 2 weeks after Hill accidentally wrecked SVG at Coronado, Van Gisbergen appeared to return the favor at Chicagoland by spinning Hill into the wall. And Hill immediately accused SVG of intentional retaliation. SVG denied it. NASCAR reviewing the incident and possible penalties remain on the table. Rivalry doesn't appear to be cooling off anytime soon. But that was fun, too, a couple of weeks ago between SVG and Austin Hill. Do we think this is personal, or do you think it's kind of accidental?
This is rivalry week because you had the continuation, at least from SVG's side, the end of this thing with Austin Hill. And you also had all this stuff with Carson Hocevar and Zane Smith going at each.
A $150 food and beverage credit. Oasis Pool Deck at Fontainebleau, Las Vegas is officially open for the season, offering a 6-acre elevated pool experience with 6 distinct pools and a beach. Enter to win a 2-night stay at Fontainebleau, Las Vegas, and $150 food and beverage credit to book your stay. Visit FontainebleauLasVegas.com now.
We got
tickets for Alice Cooper. We give
Guy
away.
Yesterday was very pumped up for that.
That's
by the way.
Awesome. We're going to do that going to break. I do want to get back to this conversation about what the Padres do at the deadline. Obviously, we've had this conversation a lot, but it's just there's so many nuances to this, so many like open-ended parts. There's so much going on. But as we continue on this, I mean, obviously the biggest question is the rotation. And in the biggest question of the team is another big question. And that's everything depending really on Nick Pivetta, who hasn't pitched since April because of an elbow flexor strain. If he stays on the injured list 130 consecutive days, San Diego can void the final 2 guaranteed years of his contract, which, by the way, was anybody paying attention to that except for us when it first came out, like
I
April?
know. It's a
did you hear like on the round table today? They're like, did you guys hear this? I'm like, we talked about this months ago.
When it happened.
Frank had to do math, and you know what? He ended up being 1 off, I guess. He needs to return by August 22nd. You're still 1 off.
Oh, I just remembered it was around my mother's birthday. My mother's birthday is August 21st. So it was like there or thereabouts.
So he needs to be back on the team and activated before August 22nd. Otherwise, the Padres could just like terminate his contract. Well, at the end of the year, they don't have to pick it up.
The player option turns into a club option.
And it's like I think it's like $14 million next year. I mean, that opens up its own situation that's interesting. And that is the fact that, what do you do if he does come back? Let's say he comes back after August 22nd, which means you have a club option there, right? He's getting paid $20.5 million this year. If you were to pick up that option, it would be $14 million next year. And then I don't know what I got to look this up real quick about this. Okay, so the 2027, so he can opt out after 2026 or 2027, but the opt out in 2027
locks him in for 2 years.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
It says the 2027 player option switches to a club option at the same value if Pivetta spends at least 130 consecutive days on the injured list within a season for a qualifying injury. That's consecutive days. It makes sense. That the specifics of which are unknown. If between July 1st, 2026 and the end of 2028, Pivetta spends at least 130 consecutive days on the injured list for the same qualifying injury, the club will have a $5 million option for 2029. How about that? We don't know. We have never heard about that part yet. Have you heard about that part?
No.
So essentially, with Nick Pivetta here, his player option switches to a club option if he spends 130 consecutive days on the injured list. Okay.
Well, it also says for a qualifying injury. I would have to assume what he has is a qualifying injury.
The specifics of that are unknown. So yeah. I guess they have their rules. I'm sure an elbow of some kind is probably
would have to be a part of it. Yes. If he was out for 2 days because he dropped a weight on his foot or something like that, I don't think that would count.
So he could, I mean, that opens up to a new dilemma too, because this would qualify for the Padres getting an option for Nick Pivetta at $5 million in 2029, regardless if that seems valuable or not.
That
he's 33, 34, 35. It'd be his age 36 season, for $5 million would it be worth having him on the team?
They actually don't. So again, it says if between July 1st and the end of 2028, if he spends at least 130 consecutive days on the IL. So this, what he has done already, what he spent on the IL.
Well, it only be the days after.
Yeah, it does not count towards that. So he's only 15 days into that clause of the contract being available.
I think that's if he stays on the injured list, they could theoretically. Well, you know what it does is it puts it in technically for the next year too, for 2027. So they would have the same option next year. So
yeah,
they could theoretically, if they wanted to, they could pick up the $14 million next year. You know, which would be if actually, this is how I view this now. So if Nick Pivetta comes back, because this actually goes into the question that we talked about on the roundtable today. If Nick Pivetta comes back and he looks like his old self at any point, you can then take the risk of getting him for $14 million, which would be relatively a steal. Based on the going rate of pitchers, right? And then if he gets hurt again, then you're built in with, you get another club option. And it's like for $5 million for 2029. The problem is, though, is 2028. I would assume that you are picking up that year too, and that's $18 million, which I don't know if you'd want to do that for him to rehab. But they have put in a lot of clauses on this, knowing that he obviously had some type of red flag of an of an injury issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I find it to be interesting. I don't think he's going to come back before August 22nd, sorry. And I don't really think there's that big of a world where you would take him for $14 million, unless you think that it's going to magically get better for 2028. But if he gets hurt at the end of this year, or if he gets hurt at the beginning of next year, you've already picked up the option, which means you got to pay him $18 million the following year. I mean, for him to rehab? And then to pay him like $5 million in 2029. I mean, at that point, with his age and with some injuries in there, I don't know if that is worth it to the Padres, other than just going to sign somebody else. But he is a little bit of a game changer here with some of those clauses for this team. The $5 million option for 2029 is interesting. So right now, he has been on the injured list for, what is that, 16 consecutive days now? According to that one, for the $5 million option of 2029.
Yes.
If he missed all of the second half, that's consecutive days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's 130 days?
There's 66 games. I don't know how many days off they have in there.
Yeah, so he would have to be out through the end of the season.
4, 5, 6, 7.
On the injured list. And I don't know how that works for the offseason.
66 games plus 7 days off. So what is that? 70, 73?
Well, 130 days after July 1st.
Days?
130 days after July 1st is November 8th. So it's obviously all of October. And, some of these guys get activated from the injured list, right? Unless for the offseason because of the.
I was just going to the end of the season,
So that's probably not part of the deal, but that's obviously to protect him in the event that he got his injury. He opted into his contract, and they got him in an injury in the next year or something like that. It's a very complex contract. It's very interesting for Nick Pivetta, but the question is, will he be healthy when he comes back? Can he stay healthy when he comes back? Can he immediately pitch effectively if and when he comes back? Can you recover? Can you rely on him? Same with Joe Musgrove. I mean, his recovery has been way slower than expected. He has had the bone-on-bone irritation. He has had a spring setback. He is, alerting mechanics during rehab. Is he a guy that could stay healthy? I mean, we talked about you can't really rely on these guys as a plan. If they were to both come back and be anything close to what they were, which is a major if, trading for one starting pitcher would all of a sudden change your entire rotation.
Send him to Walker Buehler's dentist. See if that works.
It's going to be an interesting deal. Just with the trade deadline, and plus, like the Stars have had, massive disappointing starts to their season. But there is some optimism for the second half, and there is some pressure building across the organization. We'll talk about that when we come back, as well as talk about something that Major League Baseball is shutting down. That's going on in Major League Baseball and dugouts. We'll have more information on that when we return. 141 on a Thursday. Getting into another summer weekend. Padres baseball is back tomorrow. They'll start their Comic-Con road trip as they take on the Kansas City Royals for 3 over the weekend. The Atlanta Braves next week, and then the Miami Marlins before returning home for a couple of giveaways. How about this? Padres homestand number 9 against the Rockies and Giants, July 28th through August 2nd. Before summer ends, cheer on the Padres at Petco Park. Padres have 2 great giveaways planned at the end of July. A Padres poncho, which Frank is wearing right now on the YouTube stream, presented by Soapy Joe's on Tuesday, July 28th. And a reversible home and away bucket hat presented by UC San Diego Health on Thursday, July 30th. Frank's got the home look on the bucket hat. It's a good look for you, Frank. I like the bucket hat. It looks nice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more of an, I'm actually going to, I can't hear anything. Hold on.
Might as well flip the poncho, flip the hat anyway.
I like the away colors and a little bit more anyway. I'm a big fan of the gold.
He likes the sand.
Yeah.
I think it matches the poncho better. There you go. Now he's got the away one. The poncho is presented by Soapy Joe's Tuesday, July 28th, 6:40. Padres take on the Rockies. Show your Padres pride with this brown and gold poncho presented by Soapy Joe's. First 40,000 fans in attendance will get the poncho. And then the home and away bucket hat presented by UC San Diego Health Thursday, July 30th at 6:40. Let you flip the brim, switch up your style, arrive early so you're one of the first 40,000 fans to get that. Did you see Mark Grant turn that into a fedora?
Yeah, I was going to say
that was pretty good. He turned into a ball cap too. That is a look for sure. What Frank's repping right now. What would you consider that to be?
A hat.
Is that your dope hat? Self-proclaimed dope?
No, that's I can't hear anything out of my earphones, and I'm trying to.
Padres.com is your official source for Padres ticket. Visit Padres.com/tickets. Before we get to this other Padres conversation, did you see this come out today? Eno Saris had it, but Major League Baseball is cracking down on AI in the dugout. They have implemented a significant midseason policy change by effectively banning teams from using league-issued dugout iPads to access generative AI or custom software that provides real-time strategic recommendations during games.
I didn't think Allen Iverson was all that big a deal, but
foul. Come on, really?
He draws the foul.
We're talking about practice. The move comes after Major League Baseball discovered that clubs had expanded the use of league-issued iPads well beyond their original purpose. While no team violated sign-stealing rules or received discipline, the league believed the technology was evolving too quickly and threatening the human element of in-game decision-making. The ban officially took effect at the start of the second half of the season after teams were notified via a June 11th memo. Apparently, teams had developed custom applications that went beyond simply displaying scouting reports. These apps could provide live recommendations on pitch selection, defensive positioning, pinch hitters, bullpen usage, player substitutions, other in-game strategic decisions. Major League Baseball viewed this as crossing the line from providing information to actively influencing or making baseball decisions. Apparently, this was very popular among baseball. Roughly 1/3 of Major League Baseball teams were using these AI-powered tools in some capacity. Around 6 organizations were already using dugout-generated pitch suggestions during games. Several clubs were feeding live game information into AI models that updated recommendations throughout the game. While no rules had technically been broken, the trend was growing rapidly, and apparently they wanted to stop the cheating before the cheating started. Was kind of the memo here. Before the ban, league-issued iPads featured 3 sections: an MLB StatCast tab that had video, exit velocity, pitch movement, standard MLB data. They had an ABS tab, the automated ball and strike challenge information, and they had a custom team tab originally intended for matchup sheets, defensive alignment, scouting reports, player tendencies. Instead, some organizations expanded this tab with AI, predictive models, dynamic game recommendations, and live strategy engines. Essentially, the iPad was evolving into a baseball version of an AI assistant coach sitting next to the manager. Pitch calling became the biggest concern, apparently.
Could you imagine if the teams that were really taking advantage of this are the 7 worst teams in Major League Baseball right now?
They probably wouldn't have banned it if that was the case. Pitch calling became the biggest concern. The largest concern centered around pitch sequencing. Some clubs reportedly live charted every pitch, updated AI models inning by inning, generated recommendations based on hitter tendencies, previous sequences, fatigue, game situation, and lineup order. Instead of relying entirely on catcher instincts, pitcher feel, and pitching coach input, AI increasingly influenced pitch selection. That's interesting. MLB's concerned the league wasn't accusing anyone of cheating. Instead, officials worried that managers would become AI operators. Coaches would simply execute algorithm recommendations, and competitive balance would increasingly depend on technology budgets rather than baseball knowledge. One front office executive summarized it perfectly. Got to stop the cheating before there's cheating. What is still allowed? Scouting reports, matchup data, defensive cards, player tendencies, static information created before first pitch. What is now prohibited? Live AI recommendations, dynamically updating models, software reacting to current game events, real-time strategic suggestions. Pre-game preparation is allowed. Real-time AI coaching is banned. I'm okay with that. I mean, at that point, like, if you allowed this to happen, why would you even pay for a manager at that point? Why would you pay for any coaches? It's like, why do we have coaches out here? We're just gonna run everything through a computer. Why don't you just have the computer do it? That's the kind of human element I'm okay with. Like, AI for like deciding what you're gonna do every single at bat. It's like, at that point, what are we doing? I have no problem with this, Frank. I really don't.
No, I have no problem with it either. One thing I do have a problem with, though, I understand that this kind of negates the whole point of and poncho. It's very warm. It is. It's quite nice. My legs are nice and comfortable and warm right now. I wish it had sides because now, like, my chest, my stomach and chest are very warm, but the sides are cold. I wish it. Like I said, I know it kind of goes against the whole idea of and poncho, but
I think you're supposed to wear chaps with it.
Gotcha.
Chaps will cover the sides and keep the front and back exposed, and then you can wear the poncho over the top.
Gotcha.
It's how you get to breathe a little bit. It cools you off. Nice little breeze.
It is very nice and comfortable, though.
So you can't say assless chaps because that's just what chaps are. That's what chaps are. They're just chaps. You need to say the other part. It's true. I guess your ass would be cold if you just wore the chaps. Why are you displaying anything right now?
I'm not. No.
Where is this going?
It doesn't go. Oh, wait.
You're sitting on it.
It doesn't go down that far.
Okay. Let's go back to the Padres for the last couple of minutes here. One of the interesting things with the Padres, we talked about the optimism and then some of the negativity as we went to break. Some optimism exists for the Padres. I mean, you've seen Machado start to heat up. Bogarts is finally hitting home runs. I like this a change of approach. He didn't have his bat on his shoulders in his last handful of bats this past weekend. Merrill's collecting more multi-hit games. Jake Cronenworth looks pretty good. It's good to have Luis Camposano back. Since June 17th, the Padres OPS 745, which is better. It's not the best, but it's still likely not enough without improved starting pitching. But there are reasons for optimism with the offensive side of things. Now, this is what I thought was interesting in Dennis Lynn's article about this particular second half storylines. The pressure building across the organization about the Padres missing the playoffs. He alluded to the possible fallout of Craig Stammen having a very short managerial tenure. He talked about first-year hitting coach Steven Souza Jr. Could potentially not be around at the conclusion of the season if they don't make the playoffs. And then, of course, like it just suggested with AJ Preller, something that's rarely discussed. Preller has hired 6 managers. Bob Melvin, Mike Schilt both left. Most organizations likely would have changed baseball leadership by now. And of course, you don't know the factor of the new ownership group taking over probably at the end of the season or into the offseason. I mean, if another expensive roster underachieves, there are a lot of question marks throughout this organization. And that's just an interesting nugget that I thought out of Dennis Lynn's article was him bringing up the suggestion if this team does not make the playoffs. And I mean, I guess somebody has to take the fall, and it's not going to be the players, but really the players need to be able to execute. I mean, there's been too long where the guys that are actually swinging the bat and throwing the ball are not playing up to their best potential. And then the other thing that's frustrating is you see those guys when they leave start to do it again. But I was a little surprised by this by Dennis Lin, and I was not at the same time when it came to the who knows who's going to be in these positions during the going into next year. Frank, I can't imagine they're hiring a seventh manager at this point if they don't make the playoffs. But it's interesting, is it not? I find this part of the article to be very interesting.
It definitely is. It is also kind of telling as to, the situation that the Padres find themselves in. You look at guys like Bob Melvin and Mike Schultz. Those guys left before their contracts were up. They weren't fired. They left. So I don't know if you. Yes, there are new managers that had to be hired after that, but I don't know if you could really put those on AJ Preller because they weren't fired. It was assumed that Mike Schultz was retiring because that's what he said, and things weren't working out with Bob Melvin, so they let him go to San Francisco. So I don't know if you just miss out. I don't know what happens. I really, really don't. It's been an interesting year with this coaching staff for sure, and it's making it a lot more interesting for AJ Preller in the front office.
Even if you take Bob Melvin and Mike Schultz out of it, it's still four different managers.
It is a number of people.
I mean, they got rid of Bud Black very early in the season, his first year. They went with Andy Green. But again, like the situation is different though, too, compared to it's like Andy Green was supposed to be the sacrificial lamb, right?
Yeah, they were.
So they brought in him. I don't honestly think they thought Andy Green was going to be like the future manager of the Padres.
No,
I mean, it was
those guys were presiding over a black hole.
So Andy Green is the sacrificial lamb manager, and then they got to a point where they hire, they get the players, they get rid of him, and then honestly, the big one that was like his move was Jace Tingler, and that's the only one that really hasn't worked out. The other two guys left. I don't want to make excuses for it, but it's a little bit different. Up next, Tony Gwynn Jr., Chris Ello, Matt Scraby for Gwynn and Chris. For Frank Marchese, I'm Braden Surprenant. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow, wrap up the week, and tomorrow we'll have Padres baseball.